Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen meeting of Tuesday, January 23rd. I would like to remind everyone that in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen meeting is meeting this evening. This meeting will be audio and videotaped in accordance with the Mass Open Meeting laws. Before we begin, and we have our Pledge of Allegiance, I would ask everyone just to join us in a very brief moment of silence with this horrific event that happened in Kentucky today in another school shooting. Senseless act. So if you would be kind enough. Thank you all very much. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name is Jim Lehan on the board. To my right is Jeff Palumbo. To my left is Mr. Hathaway, our town administrator, Sue Jacobson, our administrative assistant. We have with us Rich, who's our town planner, and of course Todd, who is our finance director. Mr. Bugby is on his way. He is a victim of the MBTA timing. His train is late. And so we're going to delay the Lawrence Street presentation until he arrives and just do some house cleaning business. We expect him here within the next 10 to 12 minutes, we hope. So if you'll bear with us a little bit, we do appreciate it. So, Mr. Hathaway, do you want to just briefly read the agenda?
Sure. Actually, I think I'll try and read them somewhat in the order we're going to cover them, or at least we're planning on covering them. We have the Lawrence Street Bridge and Road Project, financial review with Finance Director Todd Lindmark, discussion of some the Run and Gun Ranch, update of a conversation with Mr. O'Hart, which is a review of the April 10th, 2017 meeting. Some discussions Rich and I have had with the MBTA about a second line coming into Norfolk. Safe Harbor, we have reached the fact that we have reached Safe Harbor for our 40B status from DHCD, and Susan can give us some updates on that as well. Then we have some action items, including opening the town warrant, a request to name a new street off of subdivision on 33 Medway Street. We have a request to purchase some image cast optical scan voting machines from the town clerk. Consider approving and re-signing the rebids for the joint salt bid, purchase and sale for 66 Priscilla Avenue. That was an agenda item at town meeting. And then we have the Southeastern Regional Services Group DPW Services Award. And then finally, a sample ballot presented by the town clerk that needs to be signed for Norfolk Town annual election. And then, of course, we have acceptance of minutes.
Okay.
You want to just do a report of the warrants? I know you probably signed most of those.
I have. I can attest that I have signed the following warrants. December 5th, 17, for $121,104.48. December 12th, for $877,234.72. December 8th, $798,895.02. December 19th, $123,994.94. December 19th, $620. December 19th as well, $449,965.75. December 26th, $413,663.23. December, same date, $787,156.49. January 1st, $94,415.22. And $732,852.61. January 9th, $1,065,767.62. $147,429.05. January 16th, $139,333.70. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept the report of warrants as stated.
I will second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I know you wanted to update us on the MMA meeting. you want to do that?
Yeah, this will bore people for a few minutes, but we just attended the Massachusetts Municipal Association meeting this last weekend in Boston. It's where all the selectmen, mayors, and all sorts of folks gather. It was, I think, the largest one they've ever had. We hear the governor, we hear the various senators, there are a lot of workshops that are helpful to us in terms of the things that we deal with every day. I thought it was one of the better sessions we've had. Jeff attended it, I attended it, Jack attended it. Jeff, do you have any comments or you want any feedback on it?
I think, one of the things, it was the largest participation rate ever from the municipalities of the Commonwealth. But a couple things I think were more relevant in this particular meeting than prior ones. Of course, the whole marijuana, legislation. This thing is in a state of flux, continues to be in a state of flux. So it's difficult to keep up with it as various communities, they decide to go in different directions here. Our town has, in my opinion, wisely chosen to move forward with a moratorium until the situation gets a bit more stable, a bit better understood. So this town has gone forward with a moratorium on the retail establishment. So there's nothing that I heard at the MMA meeting which would suggest that that was the wrong decision by this community. So that was one of the things that I came away with. And also in terms of some conversations with Mass Housing, it's a trade show type event, so there's various booths and attendees at those booths, and I believe Jim as well had spent some time with some of those folks. I spent some time, just discussing some of the concerns that we have with the 40B legislation as it exists today. So that was something else that was very relevant for our town, given the amount of activity that we have taking place, and has been taking place now for the last couple of years. So those are the things that I came
I'll just add to that. I spent quite a bit of time with the Housing Authority folks, and one of the things that is going on that I found very interesting, there is a legislative initiative by the governor to create some, I would say, better town control over these 40B issues. It is a very flawed law. Sue will talk about it a little bit more as we get into the meeting. There appears to be a recognition by the governor that the lack of control that towns have is not serving the best interest of the public. This at least is what he has presented. Whether the legislature agrees or disagrees remains to be seen, but in the conversations I had, he appears to be an advocate for some change. I didn't hear anything bad about that conversation. Any change would be a benefit to all of us. So hopefully, I know that's a spring topic for the legislators. I had not heard of this initiative until this meeting. I don't know that anyone had. So it's the first positive sign I've seen that we might have some opportunity to get some degree of more local control over which we really have very little now. So I found that a very positive thing. The opioid crisis continues to haunt every town. There was a lot of discussion. There was a workshop on this as well. And no one seems to have a magic answer to this problem. But every select person I spoke with from all over the place has a huge concern over this, as we do. And it's just a tragedy, a social tragedy that we're trying to work our way through. But every town is suffering through this. Good news, the state aid, we anticipate about a 3.5% increase in state aid. We've had years where we got decreases, so anytime we get a little increase is always a positive thing. Just as a point of information, our state aid is still not back to where it was in 2008. So just to let you know that it's been a long road back. Our state aid, what we call cherry sheets, we had more state income in 2008 than we did in 2017. So we're still working our way back, but it has improved over the last 2 or 3 years. I won't bore you with the rest of the meeting, but it was a good meeting. I always find them helpful. It's always a good opportunity to sit down with other selectmen that deal with the same issues we deal with. And none of us are that smart. We'll steal whatever good ideas we can find. So I always find it a a learning experience. So, Jack, you have any comments?
No,
Okay.
most same meetings you did, it was a good meeting.
Well,
You wanna, Rich and I,
we do need to get into some of this, I think.
You
We
want-
have, I know there are folks here from Seekonk for run and gun. I think maybe we can go directly to that?
Sure.
Okay. It's been brought to our attention that there has been postings on the web pages for events to be held at the Run and Gun. I think this actually may be a surprisingly brief conversation. Mr. Brogan has not, at this point in time, Mr. Bugby. Mr. Brogan has not, at this point in time, applied for an entertainment license. We have no application from him at this time. He received a letter from our town council. The Cliff Note version of it, very simply is that no events are to be held without a license. He has received that letter, we've heard no response. It doesn't matter. So until such time as he applies and have a license, we will not allow any events to be held in which either a fee is charged for a participant or a person involved in the event. If anyone has any questions on that, I mean, it really is that succinct, so. Anyone? Karen? Yeah. Better grab the microphone, Karen. You know it. You know the system. And I say that affectionately. Mr. Bugby, your meeting. Go ahead, sir.
Karen Clark, 130 Seekonk. Let's say Mr. Brogan ignores the Board of Selectmen's and Town Council's wishes and goes ahead and has this event without an entertainment license. How will that be handled by the town?
Well, let me read you, maybe I could read you the letter.
Okay.
And it says, please be advised that this office represents the town of Norfolk as town council to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen acting as a licensing authority for the town of Norfolk. I won't bore you with all the Mass General Law nonsense and all of that. The critical component here is you are hereby notified that any scheduled events in the calendar year 2018 will not be permitted without application and approval of an entertainment license, period. And there's other small language in here, but that's the important part. And that letter was sent to him last week, dated January 17th. So we've heard nothing back, but if he attempts to hold an event, we will stop it.
And the residents would notify the police department, because unfortunately, when he holds the events, it's always on the weekend, so nobody is present at the town hall.
We've,
yeah, I'd call the police department.
yep, police department will be notified.
Okay. You have the authority to shut it down.
And then we'll, yeah.
And Mr. DeLuca, our attorney, has reached out to Mr. Brogan's attorney, and they know each other through other legal involvement. And he's hoping to have a reasonable conversation with
this.
him about that this week.
We've done
Hopefully,
A.
we're always a little more confident when attorneys start talking to each other,
I
but
think we were gonna go right to that.
we'll see.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. I appreciate it. And as far as the barn for rent this evening, that's not something that will be discussed?
Not tonight, no.
No, we are aware of it. We are seeking the legal opinion on that.
Okay.
Yep.
'Cause I did have a conversation, just to update you, with Mr. Curran, our new chief assessor, and he explained to me that when you're in Chapter Land 61B, the only portion of your property that is actually in that chapter land is your property. It is the grounds. So by that, he said, the indoor arena is not in that chapter land, the barn is not in that chapter land, and the home is not in that chapter land. So I guess why I interpret that as if Mr. Brogan chose to have events in the arena, it would then be a commercial business, because the property's not in chapter land.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
in a position to comment on it, Karen. We have presented the information to town council. We wanted to address the pending event first,
I appreciate it.
because we don't have an application and he has no license. So there will be no event.
I thank you.
Great, thank you.
I will get back to the chairman.
Yes.
I have a question. Cindy Taman, 117 Seekonk. I know that in the past I've had issues that if a letter was delivered to somebody, but it was not acknowledged by that person to have been received, that it it might not be pertain to, it might not be acceptable, and that the town or whoever sent the letter doesn't have any binding charge for him or her to have received that documentation. So when that letter was sent to him, do you have receipt from,
I don't know.
that he
It
received
was,
it?
it was sent certified mail. I don't know if town council's gotten a receipt back yet, but.
Because I've had situations where something was sent certified,
Yep.
and it was not picked up.
Yep.
The certified letter was not delivered, and they had no recollection. We had to send it again, and we actually had to have somebody deliver it. I had to pay to have somebody delivered it in order for the person to have, who it was being delivered to have received it.
Yep.
So I might recommend
No, we've definitely
looking
had to-
into that.
We've dealt with many of those unfortunate situations.
And I would just add that, as Mr. Hathaway said, council has talked to council, so there is an awareness here.
Great. Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
Thanks. Still wet.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, good to be here. So I think we're moving on to
I
Lawrence
think we're
Street.
gonna go to the Lawrence Street Bridge Road Project.
Okay, great. Who do we have?
We have Mr. Scully from,
Oh, would you like to join us, sir? Or
Try-
whatever's easiest for you.
Green, somebody.
Probably easier to stand up, I think.
I think you're gonna need a microphone.
Yeah, I
for-
have it.
Oh, good, sorry, thank you.
Sorry, Jack.
Pull that chair out of there, so.
These are my notes on the meeting I had with him offline. This pile is too big. I don't even know what that is.
Just, oh, it's over here, so. You want, do you want the computer? You can have the computer.
No, that's good. All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Bill Scully. I'm with Green International Affiliates. We've been working on the design of the bridge in the section of Lawrence Street as part of the MassWorks grant project. And tonight, I want to give a brief update of where we are in the project, and I'll cover a little bit of the MassWorks summary, just so we're all clear on what that some of the fine points are. A brief review of the current condition of Lawrence Street, and then the project description. The purpose too of coming before the board. I mean, as road commissioners, you're the one with the authority on the street and the project. You're also administering the award from the state as it goes to advertising and construction. So where we are today, we knew we had planned on a briefing of the board when we were about where we are, about halfway through the design. And we have completed what we call 50% design set of plans, and that's into the town for review right now. Next slide. So the MassWorks Grant Award, so that was submitted somewhere in around September, first week of September, I think it was. The award's for $1.8 million. In the application, it had the bridge replacement. So on Lawrence Street, it's about a 20-foot, it's a small bridge over Bush Pond. It had a piece of the road between the bridge and Park Street. And at that time, the grant included a walkway tying into the sidewalk, and that walkway at that time was a boardwalk into the pond, and then tying back into land on the west side of the causeway. As we got comments from town officials, the project changed a little bit. It refined a bit, and I'll explain what those changes were. It's still the same components. We're still the objective of moving pedestrians or allowing pedestrians a safe way to walk down towards Park Street, the bridge being fixed, and on top of that now the causeway becoming part of the project. So and really the award and the project addresses a critical need of the bridge. The bridge is rated fairly poor, really needs to be replaced at some time. And I know the town has been working towards that over the last couple of years. And just in the recent few days, recent week, the town heard that MassDOT will award some money for the bridge itself. So some additional funds to come into the project.
Can we tell them, does they know?
So and everything else that I've said. So it does include pedestrian sidewalk, and it does now include treatment of the causeway. So Lawrence Street, as you all know, it connects with Mill Street in Franklin on the west side, and it intersects with Park Street on the east side. I just mentioned the bridge is in serious need of repair. It's been inspected, not only by the town, but by Mass DOT. And while surprisingly it took a couple of years for them to approve some of the funds or a couple of rounds of the application, at least they did come through in the last week for that. The causeway between the bridge and the proposed Abbeville site is approximately 20 feet in pavement width. It varies. It's in some spots you could measure slightly below 20, and in some spots you might measure almost 21, a little over 21 feet. So it varies a little bit. And then there's slope on the side. So you're not right at the edge of water, but it's about 20 feet in width. And right now there's no pedestrian walkway or sidewalk on the street. The next few slides are just various pictures. This is Lawrence Street looking east over the bridge towards Park Street, and then as you come up to the approach it at Park Street where it's a stop-controlled intersection. There's a couple of driveways just off of this area here. You might recall there's an opening, and people might park there and go fishing or drop a canoe in or something. So that's over here. This is looking west towards the causeway. So here's the bridge at that spot, and then the causeway going west, and you're on the causeway now. And you can see a little bit of the pavement change in this section, and then you're off the causeway and you're coming around the curve as you approach Cranberry Village. And this is just a couple of shots just to remind us what some of the bridge areas look. The town did do some treatment of the bridge in the last year and a half or so with some wing wall repair and things. Over the last couple months, we had it inspected again and tested. We took cores on the abutments to see the condition they were in and if they could be used or had to be modified during the construction. In fact, the tests showed the existing abutments will be able to be retained, which is a good thing. They will be modified as you change the type of bridge and type of construction coming into it. But it's better than having to build all new abutments out there. Next slide. All right, so I pretty much said all of this. The MassWorks project goes from goes from Park to just about in this area. So it's about a 950-foot section. Up on Park down to the bridge, you have a couple of 100 feet. You have the bridge 20 feet in width, and then the rest of it is pretty much the causeway. Right around this where that that label is, you're coming back on land. The road is moving off the causeway. The next couple of slides just try to illustrate. I took some of these from the set of plans, and it's just to illustrate what the project will look like in summarizing. Some of the details still have to be worked on over the next several weeks. But again, where we ended up is providing for a consistent 24 feet of width of pavement from Park Street through the whole project. And that ties into then Lawrence Street on the west side, which essentially is 24 feet in width over there. I mentioned the abutments already. So this is a shot of the bridge. So on all the widening of the roadway the walkway is going, takes place on the north side. So here we have the new bridge going in, 24 feet from curb to curb, and then they'll be cantilevered out over the bridge will be the sidewalk, and railing and railing. And the sidewalk will meet current standards in terms of width and weight. The bridge is being designed for standard heavy truck load, be a cement concrete deck. And in the end, there'll probably be a little bit more room between the water level and the bottom of the bridge than exists today. Next slide, please. So this is just an illustration of the roadway section. So again, everything is really being taking place on the north side. So the widening will take place on the north side. The walkway will be on the north side. The south side, there'll be some stabilization of the edge. There may be areas where we need some type of stone fill, but trying not to affect the slope. There'll be guardrail placed on the south side, which you don't have today. Some of the utility poles, it looks like they'll have to be relocated. And Bob McGee is trying to be in touch with the utility companies to go over that issue. The widening, so right now, as I said, call it 20 feet. So we'll have a retaining wall with a sheet pile going along that section of the causeway. That'll enable us to then widen the road out by 4 feet. We'll cantilever, so this drawing here, Jack, actually, if you go to the next one, it's a little bigger. So here's the roadway, the guardrail on the south side, and on the north side, we'll have the retaining wall, widening, cantilevering the walkway out over the water, railing. It'll also have a curb, a high curb on that side, so no vehicle could really jump the curb. We're recommending, and I think everyone agreed to go with about a 10-foot travel lanes and 2-foot shoulders. Although I think I'm gonna have to edit that, but that's what we talked about at the last staff meeting. So the 2-foot shoulders gives a little bit of room for someone riding a bike. It gives some protection. And the 10-foot lanes, what we find is the narrow lanes keeps traffic going a little bit slower. It's not the end all, but it is better than having no striping out there or wide lanes. So this will continue out to the west, and then when it ties into land, it'll connect into a sidewalk out on that side, and that will extend up to the end of the project. The sidewalk will probably be bituminous concrete on that side, separated from the road by about 2 to 3 feet, and that'll be the same thing we do on the Park Street side. So the sidewalk will be on the north side, separated from the road. We'll have a little concrete landing around Park for potentially a future spot where kids or people waiting for a GATRA bus, for an example, could wait for that. Next slide, I think, yeah, it just shows the detail of the walkway and the wall, and what turned, you end up saying, well, it's a short piece of road, it's just a bridge, a little bit of widening, but it is kind of complicated to get everything everyone wants. I'm more of a traffic guy, traffic background, and I can live with 20 feet or 22 feet. Everyone wanted 24, which meant widening. So what we've tried to do is we made sure, and we still have work to do on the environmental side, but with the wall where it's going and how we're designing the walkway, we're essentially having no significant environmental impact. We're not doing any filling of the pond. There's no wetland impact. There will be some wildlife impact because This will be some shadow on the edge of the pond, so there'll be wildlife mitigation around the edge of the pond. That's being worked on, and it will be presented to the Conservation Commission in a couple of weeks. So items to be done. There, like I said, we've done a lot of work. 50% design, it's 50 sheets of details and plans, but there's still a lot to do in terms of wrapping up the project. While Bob and Rich are looking over the plans, we'll be doing a couple things. One is reviewing the construction logistics of the project. And I wrote desirable and required. So desirable, yeah, I mean, it'd be great to be able to construct a bridge and everything without any impact. That's great. But there may be some requirements. I mean, you have to dismantle the existing bridge. You have to get equipment in to put the sheet piles in. So we have to work through those logistics. There may be times where the road has to be closed for equipment in general traffic. But then there may be times where we're able to go one way, one lane open and alternating flow. The bridge, we're looking at some options, same type of construction, but do we do it all at once? Or do we try to build half and half? So we're looking at that option. And we evaluate that with respect to what change in costs do we have. If we go length of time or more difficulty in construction, then it affects costs. Right now, we're right around 2.4 or so for the total project. We have to prepare and file notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. That's what I was referring to. That's in the process of being worked on. And we working with staff. The issue of railings and guardrail and materials, what it looks like. Has come up, so what we have to do over the next couple of weeks is evaluate and select the appropriate materials. From an engineering side, we're looking at make sure it's crash tested. The volume on Lawrence Street will only go up in the future, so you know it has to meet certain guidelines and standards, but we understand that everyone wants it to look really good too. Coordinate with the other utilities, which I told you Bob McGee is working on that, and then also with MassDOT. So we are going to start coordinate with MassDOT next week. It's not a MassDOT approval per se, but because it's a small bridge, they still have some review process to go through. So what we'll do next week is start to put them on notice and have meetings with them, brief them on the project, let them know not only the small bridge grant, but also the MassWorks grant, and we've got deadlines to meet, so that they'll be ready for when the final plans are into them. And then finalize the cost estimate and the specifications, address any comments that staff might have. And let's see, I think one more slide. All right, so anticipated schedule. So project is at 50%, and if you looked at the plans, 50%, in our mind, it's like it's 75, 80% done. Notice of intent, we'll be filing. We're targeting the end of January so that we have a February hearing. Final design would be scheduled to be complete probably by the end of February. That'll take into account anything that comes out of Concom, as well as any comments from the town. We want to advertise end of February, early March, in that time frame, and then be having a contractor hopefully on board and then ready to go, hopefully by early May anyways, with a substantial portion of the construction completed by fall, October, November. Construction and where the grant basically says we may need a year for total 100% construction, not knowing how good or bad the winter will be and what will be needed to be done during that time. So there may be a few months where some things don't happen until the following spring to clean up, but we do expect a substantial portion to be complete by October, November. and hopefully much of that in the summertime. And is that the last slide, Jack?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I have quite a few. When are you going to finalize a plan concerning public safety issues, traffic flow, things of that nature? We've had two bridge experiences in the area. We've had Miller Street, which was closed for probably close to 2 years. And then we had the bridge on 115, which is actually in Millis, where they had one lane open consistently through the entire process. Now granted, that's a state highway, but
Right.
when are you going to have a plan
So,
finalizing recommendations on that?
so well, in the design set, we've got some traffic management plans in there to take care of almost any situation. But what we're planning on in this next 2 weeks, now that the plans are in, is we'll be having staff meetings, police chief, Bob, Rich, Jack. So we'll sit down and we'll start reviewing those kinds of things. We've sat down with some of the contractors and trying to talk through the project on how they attack a project from a construction point of view. So we're sort of taking all the information and then seeing how we can either tweak the construction technique, tweak the design, so that we minimize disruption and know what we will then have. There may be, as I said, there may be periods where we do close the road and have to put in a full detour for a bit. There are going to be times where we're able to run one-way alternating flow. There may be things where during the daytime we may have to run one-way alternating flow, but maybe open up everything at night and have two-way flow. So it really depends. And like I said in the beginning on the bridge, there's a couple of ways to do it. One is you just dismantle the whole thing and just go right at it and try to shorten up the total construction time. But if you do that, then it gets into full detour. So it may
And who makes that decision?
that would be all of us, I believe. We're going to sit down and talk about the options and what happens and what takes place and what's a worst case, what's a best case, and balance things out. As to, for an example, if we need equipment out there to do the sheet pile work, and that equipment takes up 13 to 15 feet of the 20-foot road, then that section, at that time period, we're going to have to shut the road down. Is there the ability for them to move their equipment at the end of the day somewhere every day? That's possible. So then we may be able to go back up and open it up. But if we open it up, then what kind of traffic protection will we need on that side where we're putting the sheet piles in? So like I said, this little widening project, a little bridge, it becomes a little complicated.
So I think that, insert myself a little bit, I think Bill talked about having those staff meetings, me, Rich, police, probably both chiefs, Bob McGee. I certainly would ask, you guys can do what you want, but I would say you as the DPW liaison would participate in that, and then we'll come back to the board and kind of sign off on everything at the end of it when we come up with a plan.
Okay.
There's a lot of detailed stuff that we still have to learn, but can you pull up that other picture, Tom?
Sure.
We've been trying for years to get money for this bridge. That's a picture of a bridge similar. It's actually on Cape Cod. And I'm looking more at the railing, the wooden walkway and railing. It's just me, others may disagree, but that's a whole lot more attractive than steel girders.
Is it a safety issue? Is it a safety issue, though? The aesthetics is better, for sure.
Town of Dennis didn't have a problem with it. And they have bridges like that all over there, down the Cape.
I'd be happy to look at it. I'll have my structural person put it in the mix of evaluating what we do for the railings.
And my point on this is, and it's not a bias of that particular bridge per se, this is a beautiful area. And if we're going to do this, we want to do this aesthetically as the best we possibly can and make it as attractive and welcoming as we can possibly make it. And things of this nature, to me, enhance it rather than the traditional, side railings you see down every highway in the road. I mean, I would hope we get a vote in this, Rich, that we get, because you made a statement that always concerns me. We have to look at the cost, which means that to me always says we're going for the least expensive option.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
What I'm looking at is, there is a limit. I mean, you've got the grant money and some extra
We
money.
were awarded the second grant as well.
Correct.
So we've got another $500,000.
Right, so the cost right now.
It's 2.3.
Preliminary
2.4.
cost is 2.4,
2.4, okay,
2.4 million, and there's grant money of 2.3.
right.
So right now, so we are over, and it probably will go up rather than come down. So that's the only thing I'm.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer,
Cost
so
is,
I'm
cost
not
is
gonna
one thing,
intrude on
but safety is
people know
another.
more than I do
mean,
on
it
this,
has
but
to be.
I just want it to look good.
It has to look good, it has to be safe, and cost has to be a factor at some point. So, as I said, over the next couple of weeks, and probably what we'll end up doing is having 2 of these meetings, with all of us to go over some of those things, have a discussion. We may have to go back and do some homework, and then come back and talk about some of the, answers. So one of the things that I have on my list is the next couple of weeks is evaluating the different types of railings and guardrail, both from its aesthetic and strength. And we are using a high curb, so we can go to less strength. And then we'll
And there'll be-
we'll review it with the group, and so we'll present what we believe are workable ones and feasible ones, and what we would recommend, and there may be several options to talk about. And let me ask you a question. So I know Bob has sent me some ideas of, they're metal, but they're a design to them in different color. You've indicated you like the wood.
It's just a consideration.
Okay, and just let me ask, so the Mill Street Bridge, do you not like that one? That's brown, it fits in with the surroundings over the Charles.
It's a nice bridge.
It's nice. So I just want to make sure. So there's a lot of things we can do. I just don't want to automatically someone say, yeah, go wood, and we go wood. And I don't think you can.
I think it would be
to.
best just to
That's
show
not
us
my
the
point.
options.
That's
yeah.
just my
I'll
point.
show yeah, and I've always said that. So I'm still committed to that.
And there'll be conduits under the bridge. You're going to install the conduits?
So, all right, so that one, the conduit issue is probably gonna be, that's probably not a good thing. It's very difficult in terms of, you have a number of different, it's not as simple as just putting it in a trench and then running one conduit down for all the utilities. Typically, a Verizon.
That's a Miller Street Bridge, by the way, for
Yes,
folks.
yep. So, I mean, that's another option I'm familiar with. And again, if over the next week or two, we get a lot of different ideas, we evaluate them, and then we'll talk and select. So what I was saying is, all the utilities tend to like their own conduit bank. So it's not just a matter of dropping a trench in a conduit and then everyone's gonna, Comcast, Verizon, whomever, I'll say, hey, let's run it through the line. They're not gonna do that. It's gonna be a bank. It's big, it's getting utilities in agreement with it. Each of them have their own standards. Most of them, they're not gonna want it in the same box. They want separation from others. So at our last meeting, that was something that I did take back to the engineers, and we went through it, and it's, right now, I'd say we're recommending not to do that. It's gonna be real time consuming, maybe very difficult. The utilities to even agree to it. And we are putting in a water line along that side. So we are doing some drainage work and water line so that, that will be carrying that over the bridge. So at this point, and we can talk about it some more when the whole group is together and I have the engineers who've worked on those aspects. And in some projects we do it, some projects we don't. And it's more complicated than simply digging a hole and running the pipe down.
Right, but complicated doesn't mean it's not possible. And
True.
who gets to dictate that? Is it why do they get the control on what happens on our road? And, you know, I know it's their, you know, I know why they want separation and control. They don't want to be just beholden to one big pipe and
Right,
that go
right.
wrong.
So, and then you only have so much room then in there.
Right.
So that, it sort of all plays together. We're not working with a real large area, large room, width of the road. So we can talk about that some more, you know, in the next meeting, but, at this point, staff has recommended that we not pursue that.
You
His
have-
staff.
Yeah,
you
my
have-
staff.
What do you?
His staff.
What
Yeah, I guess.
what does our staff say?
Uh,
You, our planner.
I still want to explore it. I think it's, you know, it's certainly one,
You know, when,
Once in a-
yeah.
It's come up before. I recall this issue of them not even wanting to be in the same pipe. Yeah.
no, yeah, I understand that. I mean, I've been involved in some of those burial projects before, but I'd like to hear that it's not feasible or it's gonna be too complicated a little bit directly from them. So
Yeah,
Bob's
and-
working
and
on
when
that right
Bob's
now.
working on
Yeah.
contacting them, so
Yeah.
he can get some more information
Yeah.
as well.
There's a difference between the design code versus, you know, they have the policy or what, and maybe we should just understand the difference, which things really are against code that really can't be done versus the things that they'd rather not do, but we can apply some pressure for them to do it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Other questions?
What is the next step? I mean, I know this is preliminary and it's
So
the first
so
time
the
we've
ne-
been
next
brought
step-
into this.
Next
but what
step,
is the
while,
next step?
while the plans are being reviewed, we'll set up the meeting to go over, we'll do some research on the railings for one thing. Bob's trying to get the utility information. We have to finish the notice of intent and get that filed. But we'll set up our first meeting with the group to start reviewing and talking about just construction, traffic management, and railings and guardrail. You know, the items that we need to get detailed on, because those be materials and specifications. We will be putting together, we're starting to put together the boilerplate for advertising so that that can be reviewed by the town to put in their own specific, you know, town-specific items. So I would say that, let's see, notice of intent to be filed by January 31st. Concom hearing, I believe, is the 13th or 14th of February. We would probably like to meet as a group, today's the 23rd, if not the end of next week, maybe the beginning of the following week. First full week in February, you know, early in the week, and have a meeting to go over some of these things. That gives us a week to do some research and do some more thinking out certain things. And then what we'll do after that is we'll start to refine and finalize the plans, but we'll also, as I said, after that meeting, my guess is there'll be some homework to do, and then we'll schedule another meeting probably 2 weeks after that to try to finalize and make some decisions as to how some of the things will end up in the specification as opposed to the plans itself. When they can do some work, when not.
Scott?
Yeah, good.
There's a question
And we're
regarding.
also, yeah, we should, you did say, Jack, inviting both chiefs to
Yeah.
that next meeting.
The curbing on the road,
Yes.
There's some reference to the north side will have some curbing. Is that sloped granite curbing or
So
is it
on the
asphalt?
bridge and the causeway, it's curb. It'll be concrete, but it'll be high curb, so it becomes, we can do a short railing on that, on the roadside. But what you're trying to do is not have, prevent anyone, we're gonna have the walkway over there, so that protects the walkway. Off the causeway, it'll be berm with 2 to 3 feet of grass, and then the sidewalk. So picture like, it'd be probably on the causeway, probably 8-inch concrete, vertical distance from pavement up to there. Then there'd be a rail along it, and then you'd have the walkway.
Will you, when you next come and present a detail on the bridge, you'll have some detail on that as well?
Sure. Well, I mean, the plans do have that. I mean, it's going to be, so it's sheet pile to allow us to widen out the road, and then a concrete cap goes over that sheet pile, and then we also tie in the
More than we ever wanted to know.
the beams and things to cantilever out over for the walkway. So that is detailed on the thing. What's not, I mean, we show that there'll be a rail. We have to decide on what type of rail. On the bridge would be normal, again, curbing on the bridge and railing. So if you go down to, the Mill Street, something similar to that.
And those will come up in the discussions with Concom anyway, those types
Correct.
of details, I would assume.
Correct. So, like I said, we've got, we're doing a real lot of work in a short amount of time, so we have those details to do. On the south side, again, it's going to be just as is today. It's, runs off free, so that'll be kept the same, but stabilized edge. On the other side, because curbing, then we'll add drainage, closed drainage, and then we'll come out, we'll actually treat the water instead of, which is better than what happens today. We'll take out half of that free flow into the pond.
Other questions? Anyone here? Folks in the audience, you need a microphone and just identify yourself. And just so we're clear, obviously I know folks here about, just keep the questions obviously to, the bridge and road. Thank you.
Can you see the layout again with the street?
Sure.
Is that a safety concern?
You want a picture of today's street or from his present?
His plan that shows
Okay.
the sidewalk on the north side. Okay. I'm Sandra Mead from Eric Road. Yes, that one. So at the end of that, you're going to have pedestrians walk out to the construction entrance of Abbeville. I think you're setting up a dangerous situation there, because most of the kids are going to want to go down there, and how are they going to cross the street with trucks every 4 minutes, every day for 7 years? This is a little bit of a concern for the whole neighborhood. Do you guys know where the construction entrance is? It's not shown on this drawing.
Right, so Jack, maybe if you go to the overall project location, there was that aerial.
Right, there it is.
So, right in this area, they're proposing to keep that open during the construction when heavy truck traffic is operating in and out of the site. So this project basically brings, the project limit is about there, the sidewalk comes on to land, and also in that area is this project will have some drainage structure, treatment there. We'll have wildlife mitigation along in here. So some of that area is gonna be tightened up. We'll bring the sidewalk up to the edge of that spot. Abbeville's gonna have to manage their construction traffic, and whether it's a person down there for control, and be able to, you know, it's not like trucks are going in and out of there like 500, you know, it's a truck, it's 30 in, 30 out over the day.
No, there's 40. It's 82,000 truck
And-
trips.
Oh, sorry.
So there'll be, you know, Abbeville's gonna have to do traffic management. They're gonna have to have it signed, barreled, signed on their site, warning the truck drivers. I don't know what exactly, if a body will be out at the entrance, you know, at maybe school times. You know, but like any other normal construction operation, you know, you do all the warnings and you set things up and you guide where you want pedestrian traffic to go. So whether it's through fencing, but they're gonna have to stop and look like they're crossing a street, whether it's a
I think
truck.
that would be a ZBA more than this
Well,
project.
it-
I mean,
It's not, yeah, I mean, we're gonna be done
Well, but
up
the
to that
sidewalk
point,
is-
so.
Can we
is
consider a
ours.
sidewalk on both sides or on the other side? I
room.
mean, why are we going to dump the kids right at the construction entrance? It's not just gravel trucks. It's every logging truck, every utility worker's truck. There's going to be a steady stream of trucks here, and the kids are not going to have anywhere to go.
May I?
Yeah.
Rich, can I ask you to jump in on this? We're not here to talk about Abbeville, because there's nothing here.
I mean-
Wait, no, let me finish. Let me finish, because I agree with you. We are here to talk about public safety. And I guess I would ask the same question. I mean, regardless of whether that project does or does not go, which side serves public safety's interest? And I don't know the answer to that. But, Rich, could you jump in on this? I mean, it's a valid question.
Which side?
Yeah,
Well,
south side, north side,
yeah,
on
I
both
mean, you're
sides.
questioning which side is the sidewalk, or should it be on both sides? And which opportunity creates the least concern as it relates to public safety? That's a very fair question.
What? Well, go ahead, man.
First comment, I mean, it's a valid concern, definitely. I wasn't in on this design, so I'm coming in to evaluate it after, so I'm not sure that.
But we all are.
No, I mean, when they chose that side versus the other side, I mean, what, Bill, do you have a,
Well, my personal comment, if you're gonna have a sidewalk, on both sides, the kids are gonna cross the road at some point. I mean,
Right, no, I get, yeah.
you know, I mean, if the kid lives on one side and wants to fish on the other side, they're gonna cross the road. So just having a sidewalk on both sides doesn't prevent the kids from
I'd
crossing
almost,
the
I'd
road.
almost rather have them cross here under a controlled condition where trucks are leaving or entering on a slower speed as opposed to they're already driving and then the kid just decides to cross. So, so a little background. So initially, as I mentioned, the initial application, we had a boardwalk, but the boardwalk was going in the pond. And through the discussions and review with town officials, it was preferred not to do the boardwalk in the pond and to bring it up right alongside the road. We ended on the north side.
I don't know the answer.
Well, we had the boardwalk all through here. Private property was no impact to anything on that side. There was some environmental issues on this bank, as I recall, talking to the com agent, including turtle nesting areas and things that we don't have on the north side. So the grant does not cover sidewalks on both sides. And at that volume of road, volume of traffic,
Well, I think
certainly one side, a sidewalk on one side certainly meets the demand.
Suggestion?
well, I think to part of the answer to the one about two sidewalks versus one, because of sensitivity of the resources, there was a limit to how much you could put everything in
Actually, I
there
think I
between a
did know that.
combination of having, you know, sufficient travel lanes for traffic plus some
I do remember
extra
that now.
space, and then add a sidewalk, so, you know, you're
It's probably one or the other, I would assume.
But could we, you know, I would ask that our public safety officials have, you know, that this be something that they talk about. I mean, which, public safety is paramount to me in this project.
Well,
So
I would
how
say,
do we, which serves the public interest best?
I'd say those discussions have been going on. I mean, maybe not specifically should the sidewalk be on the other side. There's been talk of the sidewalk continuing, running all the way up, you know, another half a mile, 3/4 of a mile on that side. And so,
I mean, I would
you know,
certainly
there's-
think as part of the construction management, if the Abbeville project were to be approved, that would be incorporated as part of the construction
Absolutely.
management.
Chuck will participate in those
And
construction
he'll be
management.
part of that to make sure
Both
that,
that project and for this.
I mean,
so-
we haven't obviously been party to any of those, so we're seeing this presentation for the
Understood,
first
yeah,
time today
yeah.
too, so.
But we can.
so
talk-
there is a time of day when those trucks can operate in and out. If it's conditioned that a police detail or a flagger has to be at this entry point while the trucks are going in and out, then that flagger can certainly control, you know, kids, wait a second, or let me stop the truck, or whatever, and flag them in. And they can certainly detail a fence and, you know, guiding people to where they're gonna be. This project is gonna bring the sidewalk up to about that spot. Tighten up the rounding a little bit, give us some room to put the drainage in and the wildlife mitigation.
Other questions?
Hi, I'm Dave Diamond. I'm from 3 Bretts Farm Road. And I wanted to get some clarity. Who does Mr. Scully work for? Because you talk about your staff. Do you work for the town on this project or the state?
I'm working for the town on this project.
Okay. So I just wanted to suggest that the neighborhood there, I mean, with my wife and I, I've probably been over that bridge 30,000 times. Been here for 25 years. If you add the kids, it's more like 45,000. So if we could somehow advise the staff, would write it down for you, we get kind of one shot at this, just like the rest of the town. And if there's safety concerns, we could give those to you. I just sitting here looking at it, I'm sure there's environmental impact. You may have to go to the state for approval, but why not go for 24 feet? Why not, why not let people who ride bicycles, cyclists, be able to cycle over and not have to go down a boardwalk and things? So I'm just, as a neighbor and interested of it, I would like to see us, have some input in the project too.
And all that, I mean, some of that input's come in over the last 6 months. We are designing 24 feet.
Okay.
We
that's-
weren't planning, now we're moving to 24 feet.
Yeah, that's fine. So that's the type of thing we're looking for. We did
Mhm.
we did watch the safety meeting, I think, with the fire department got up in the truck in the fire department. Mirrors are almost touching and things. So I know there was a concern. I saw it on the Concom one. That, oh my gosh, we take out this much material. We've got a cantilever, so we don't take out this much material. Have to go through the state. Well, I know there's an interest in time here, but if we could go wider and we've got more funding, then that would be a great thing for the residents. And if you've got a collective couple of million trips from the neighborhood over that, I think it'll go a long way into building a lot of support for the project. So that's just, I think we could get a lot of neighborhood participation. And whatever or however you need it, as fast as possible, be happy to sign up to do it.
Good evening, thank you. David Mastro, 26 Lawrence Street. When you were talking about having these meetings with the police chief and fire chief and the town manager, I think you should also include the school system, because this is going to impact the schools. I think that's really important on the timing of it, especially under his schedule. You're going April, May, June in construction. That's 3 years of the school system. Why not hold off until the school system is over to start your construction so you don't interrupt this school year? You may also want to talk to Holmes, the bus company, to see what that impact is. Because if they can't go over at a certain time and you have a huge truck there, they're going into Franklin and around. The kids are already getting on the bus at 8 o'clock, for a 9 o'clock school.
Good point.
So, and also, if you have these meetings, why don't also include us? Because that's also our safety too. I mean, talking about if you have a huge truck that's gotta be stationed there, a fire truck and police should be put on the other side. I don't wanna rely on Franklin, because, you know, I saw what that Jordan Hill Road fire, they took a long time to get there. Now you're gonna have them come down Mill Street, which is even smaller than Lawrence Street in the width. I think that's, you know, a liability for the town. Also, I wanna know about Mr. Scully's, because I'm kinda confused. He's been representing Mr. DePlacido at all these other meetings, and now he's representing the town, and he's also pushing for things to go faster when I want everything to be safe. To me, that's an ethical kind of conflict there. You're representing the guy who's bringing in the biggest development in this neighborhood, and now he's representing the town. I don't feel comfortable with that as a taxpayer. I really don't.
Well, I think we're under some deadlines in terms
Well,
of.
the deadline shouldn't be pushed, because
Deadlines are with the state.
it's, I know it's from the state, but I also feel like this is being pushed because the sooner that gets done, the sooner DePlacido can build. So, I mean, I'm sorry. Our safety's first. I can care less about that development. That should come first. And if we need to, the state always gives extensions. Ask them. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Because to me, when I see him, that's a conflict of interest. He's been on all the other stuff, so that's a conflict of interest.
Well, thank you for your comment. I'm an engineer, so, I mean, I'm doing things how we approach projects and design, and I've worked for enough
He doesn't have to
cities
answer
and towns to
I
know what,
understand
know what's,
No,
know what's.
don't interrupt him.
Know what's
No,
correct
have
or
his time.
right or wrong. So,
Well, I'll answer. I mean, you know, Bill works for the town of Norfolk, and the grant was applied for by the town of Norfolk. You know, this project's gonna be paid for by the town of Norfolk, so, like he said, he's a professional engineer. He is not, you know, he is a consultant for the project as well. But, you know, I can tell you, every engineer in town works for multiple applicants. So, you know, he won't get paid, the project won't get done if the selectmen aren't satisfied with how the project is designed. They won't sign off on it until they're comfortable that the townspeople are comfortable, so.
So I will add, just in terms of, I mean, the input, I think I recognize you from some of those ZBA hearings, but input's been obtained and the town has given the direction on the project. They heard people and whether it was the police chief or residents say, I think you can go to 24 feet. And we said, okay, we'll look at it. If we can not impact the environment and do it, we'll do it. And that's what we were able to develop. The schedule and the meeting, yes, construction traffic management has to take into account the school bus and school transportation. But that's not to say that there aren't going to be instances when a full detour is needed, because whether Abbeville went or whether this MassWorks grant went, at some point, if you don't address the bridge is going to be closed. So everyone's going to have to be detoured. And if it's closed and you don't have the plan and you're not moving on fixing, then you're stuck. And I've seen situations like that. And the bridge is closed, and sometimes it's closed for 5 years, 6 years.
Miller Road was closed for 2 years.
So regardless of Abbeville, this project is a good project, and the input from residents or town officials are pushing to make it better. They went wider. And again, I mean, I live on a narrow road. I have no problem with a narrow road, but 24 we were able to do and get the walkway. So there's a lot of positives. The thing on the deadline, I put schedule April, May, construction start. Well, that doesn't mean we're closing the road in May. You know, there's things to be done as you're gearing up, and that's one of the logistics, you know, things that we'll end up talking about is, you know, when you put the bid advertisement out, we'll be calling for certain things to take place by the contractor. And that might mean, you know, road closure doesn't happen until, you know, June 18th, you know, type of thing. So you can set that. We can set, it might be, you know, they can't shut the road down until after the morning school bus is gone. Maybe the afternoon is different. Maybe we can't, you know. And again, it changes. Like if you're only going to give the contractor 5 hours of effective work and 3 hours of moving his equipment off and on, then it might mean, you know, double the length of a detour time or closure time, you know. So you're balancing, but we know what we have to try to do, try to minimize all that. The thing on the deadline kind of thing, so a MassWorks grant will, you know, and in the document that went back to them, we set an idea of what the end line is, but the awards, usually by a MassWorks grant, is you start the project in the fiscal year that you're awarded. And then if it extends into 1 or 2, you know, 1 year down the road, I mean, they love projects that, you know, you start in April, done by June 30th, that's great. Most projects, and this one certainly isn't that way. So that's where the quote deadline. And so it's not like rushing. There's been a lot of comments, a lot of input, and we're getting direction from town officials on all of this of what to do. And it's turning out to be what everyone wanted. Everything that we heard at all these meetings was, oh, we want a safe pedestrian path. No one can walk down that street. Oh, can you widen and people can maybe bike down there better. You know, the bridge, right? You can't go over the bridge. You got to fix that bridge. You know, so a lot of that is all being done. The causeway, not only widening, but it's also improving the structural soundness of it. So there'll be reclamation and then a good solid physical design so that the structure itself of the pavement's going to be much improved over what exists there today. Even though that's lasted, it's done a great job, but you know, there's going to be, you know, an improved pavement and subbase included in the project.
Thank you.
Chris Wagner, Park Street. Just one comment with regard to choosing the south side or the north side for the sidewalk. You know, the east side of Lawrence Street as it approaches Park Street used to fork. And the southern fork was still there, and that's what Mr. Scully referred to as where fishermen are parking. So if that's the area that people that are going to enjoy this area are going to park, wouldn't you want the sidewalk on the same side as that, so they're not going to have to cross the street to be able to then, you know, move on down Lawrence Street? And also, with, you mentioned that the bridge is going to be constructed to like DOT heavy truck standards. Like, what exactly is that? Like, what is it, a 50-ton limit? Like, what are the specifics on that?
I'm not the bridge guy, but I can get back to you on that. But it's I'll try to look it up when we end and get you that information. It's not interstate level, but it's, you know, it's to carry trucks and last.
So just to repeat the question, because I think it's a good one. If
Oh,
people
yeah.
are on the south side of the road and that's how they're recreating it.
Okay,
you know,
so
it's
so
the
my
access,
understanding,
maybe you
and
talk about the access to.
yeah, so my understanding is and correct me if I'm wrong, but so we have so that opening is up here. There's also an opening currently over here that people use. So over here, we've seen a couple of cars. You know, cars periodically will pull in, and maybe they do something over here. It's not a walker. It's not someone walking from here up to there and then going to the pond. What we've heard with that is, you know, if kids are going down fishing, you know, they might be walking down the street, they get to the bridge, and they just hang over both sides of the bridge. The walkway gives them a place to do that anywhere along here, but do it safely and out of the road. You know, I don't, I mean, I don't think I would say we go to the south side because of that opening. We decided to keep that opening because vehicles are going down there and either with a rowboat or canoe or whatever, so that'll stay. It might be tightened up and changed a little, but opening remains. That's all town property as well.
And there's parking on the north side, I believe.
There's parking on the north, but very limited now.
Okay.
There's boulders over there and everything. So what happens over here is, in the plans, there will be some drainage that comes this way with the project, so there will be some treatment down in that area. So technically, it would still be open a portion for people, you know, to walk over there. Certainly the sidewalk will be over there, so they can get down there if that's where they want to do stuff, but not necessarily vehicles. Maybe a drive to maintain the drainage equipment.
Margaret Cahaley, Cranberry Meadow Road. Had a few comments and questions. I know this has really been our first chance for any sort of public comment on this. I know that they said they've taken input from other meetings and such, and I am just concerned with the tight time frames. Looks like he has it going out to bid in about 6 weeks, and when we'll have a chance to see that we will have a chance to see the finished product and comment on it when they do decide. I also just, some minor notations, noticed a lot of concrete being used. I think we've learned from the bricks in downtown that concrete doesn't hold up to salt, and seems like they're using a lot of that could disintegrate pretty easily with the road treatments. I also am very concerned being on Cranberry Meadow. I know there's been bridge closures in the past. We are completely cut off from the town. That's, I think, a point that can't be addressed enough. Like Miller Street, you could still access from River Road and get into that area of Norfolk. You can't without going through Franklin, and, you know, I think, you know, being a complete road closure and detour, there's no place in town to detour you to is a major concern. I know, you know, they say, you know, you can work it out with Franklin and such. As far as I know, they don't even have pump trucks because they're fully hydrants. We have no hydrants up on our end of town, so, you know, that would become an issue. We've had fires in homes in the past, and they have to set up, you know, pools on people's front yards to pump water with the pump trucks, and I don't think that's an option with using Franklin's facilities that I'm sure in these future meetings they will address. But, and yeah, I think that was it. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, they were gonna come back to, like I said, this is our first chance of seeing this as well, so they will come back, like we said, with the different designs. I'm relying heavily, obviously, on the public safety to, you know, obviously address those concerns. You're right. I mean, you know, to Bill's point, like you said, we always put things off anyways, but that bridge is gonna go someday that bridge is gonna be deemed unsafe anyway, so what happens, so it's,
Well, the DPW
Yeah.
said with the current traffic, we have 15 years.
yeah. So 50, so your children's children are gonna have to worry about how they get
Right.
water up there, so I get, you know,
But now it becomes
We're
a
accelerating.
concern because there's a whole set of new safety issues.
Well, can I add to
Yeah.
that? I think everyone should have an opportunity to, you're gonna have meetings with Rich and Bob McGee and the police chief. I mean, if we have to bring this back every meeting, every 2 weeks, bring it back every 2 weeks, so what? I mean, I think it would be helpful for everyone to have an opportunity to see each step as we go through it. I mean, one of the things I really want to see is a detailed public safety plan. You know, some very valid points brought up here about school, and I know you say it's routine to look into it, and I'm not I'm not a road engineer, but public safety is a primary concern.
I fully agree.
And that has to be very detailed, understood, and I talked with you offline about one-way traffic and blocking that off. I agree completely. That's an isolated neighborhood when that bridge is closed. And I'm hopeful that somehow we can find a way to, you know, like we did here in 115, where one lane remained open to a certain degree where people could get by. I mean, maybe there's an hour during the day that you can live with that, but you can't live with a prolonged period of time. I agree completely. So I would hope that as you go through this plan, you would really work to try and accommodate those kinds of things.
Absolutely. I mean, do our best. I mean, public safety is very important for us. We know there's a detour plan on occasion. We know what that means. You know, and I have no problem, I would say, like, we come back, if you wanted me to come back to the board, when we have something to say. So let's say we have the staff review and the staff discussion, and we have more information on maybe decisions, you know, more findings, you know, this is what it is, you know. I know we don't want any road closure, but,
Yeah.
you know.
If the chair's agreeable, I would like to see that. I mean, and as I say, it can be every other week for all I care.
I work for you, I don't have a problem. So, you know, and, you know, some of these things that, you know, go through my mind is, you know, even if we have to close the road to general traffic, there may be ways, you know, difficult maybe, but ways to make sure that if we have maybe room enough for the emergency vehicle and the fire truck to get down. You know, I mean, so there might be, you know, but we have to sit down and talk through these things with everyone so that we're all on the same understanding and page, and we know certain situations closure, certain situations one lane, certain situations might be 2 lanes tight, you know, and
I remember the house fire up on Main Street, because you and I we happened to be up in that area, looking at the bridge, ironically, when the fire trucks went steaming by. And Franklin responded to that as well. And I would say Norfolk was there several minutes before Franklin got there. And you know, time, that makes a difference.
I don't disagree, you know. I mean, if the bridge ever went down, I mean, you said, Bob said 50 years.
We have to fix the
I've
bridge.
never
No,
heard
no,
that,
I mean,
you know. I've heard,
we-
don't.
We've been
sit
trying to
there
fix
with
that bridge for
every needle on
years,
the bridge right
for
now.
years.
If it was rated, I mean, DOT could say close it, so.
You need a microphone, I think that's what,
Oh,
probably-
sorry.
that's okay.
Oh, good, it's probably better that I wasn't on the microphone.
Yeah.
Any other comments? And, these are helpful.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Josephine Kardahi. I actually live on Seekong Street. I'm a new resident in Norfolk. This project kind of caught my attention because of the last 3 accidents we've had on the corner of Norfolk, Seekong and Main Street, 2 of them which have happened in the past 3 to 4 weeks. We don't really have even a traffic light in town, and it's just caught my attention because we do have, you know, traffic in the center here and there. And I'm coming originally from Norwood. I remember having a truck route when they were rebuilding or, you know, building the brand new high school. It was probably premature in this stage, but, you know, a project of this scope, I would expect to have some sort of truck route that would take, you know, public safety in mind, where, you know, we're not hanging on the sides of the, you know, our roads don't have any sidewalks. Also, another thing that has to do with this bridge, I've been down here at night. It's very, very dark. It's dark almost everywhere in Norfolk. I'm still getting used to your beautiful town. But if half of that, you know, just an idea or, you know, my own input, if half of that bridge is closed because they're working on the other side, and the bridge, I agree, does need to be repaired, we want to make sure that there's enough visibility that, you know, that the driver coming in at night won't be hitting a brick wall or some machinery that would be on the other side thinking it's open. So there has to be light or some sort of signal so that at night nobody would be hitting that other side. Also, I grew up in, you know, neighborhoods where, you know, people utilize, you know, crosswalks, not just crosswalks, but they had a crossing guard. I don't know the timing of schools before, like, you know, when they're picked up or when they're going to be dropped off by buses, or where that possibly new, you know, designated bus stop will be. But a crossing guard, you know, could make a lot of sense depending on how many children are in this neighborhood. And in the new, and I assume when I think about the scope of this project that the bus stop probably, the location probably will be changed. So that's going to have to be where there would be access to a sidewalk, just to make the most sense so that, you know, children are not hit. There was a child hit in this town a couple years ago. I followed that story very well. It was on, I think, Strawberry Lane. It's not unheard of. Disasters do happen. You know, just better be safe than sorry. If this project is coming to town, and I know there's opposition here and there, you just want to do it the right way where no one gets hurt. 7 years is a long time. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have some sort of committee that could sit down and review this every year to make sure that the safety, we can come up with some sort of safety committee to make sure that the safety measures that we've placed in place now or in the next 3 to 4 months can be looked at, because 7 years, again, is a long time. A lot can happen in 7 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mike Judici, Eagle Drive. I've got a lot of questions and concerns, but I'm just going to focus on a couple that I think people pointed out, most of them, of course, of the questions this evening. I think Dave had mentioned, you know, we've got one chance to get this right, and this is an important project, and here we are, January 23rd, and I don't know if you want to put that schedule back up, Jack. I thought you said you were bidding end of February, beginning of March, so you got like 6 weeks. You know, and Jim, I appreciate your offering to have this on the agenda every selectmen's meetings, but there's probably only 2 or 3 more until then. So it just seems like there are a lot of questions, both design questions and public safety questions that haven't been addressed, haven't been answered. Hopefully they can get addressed in time, but I just see that bid schedule as being too compressed. Advertised end of February, so you're talking a month.
Well,
to
if we're
6
not, I
weeks.
think, Mike, though, at least my feeling, I can't speak for Jim, if we're not comfortable with that, then we push that, you know.
Then that's fine, that's,
I would
that's
think
all,
that-
that's
I
all I'm
mean-
asking. Like I said, I just don't want to rush to get this out because there are some deadline, either real or perceived, and regret it later.
Especially with the
Some
concerns
big-
raised on public safety. So if those aren't addressed to the satisfaction of residents and boards, we can't move, I mean, at least I can't see us moving forward.
Got two agreements.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know this schedule, I mean, Mass Works, you know, they have to consider public safety, I'm sorry, you know, that's our problem, not theirs, but too bad.
That-
We don't want to create artificial delays, but we will create legitimate delays. Yeah.
I appreciate that, like I said, because this is an important project for many reasons, and this is our only chance to get it. And just in terms
Agreed.
of Mr. Scully's comments, you know, there's been discussion and concept about this having to happen, but as someone else indicated, this is the first time we've seen any kind of concrete plans on what this might look like. And maybe use that as a segue. Jack, if you go to the cross-section, someone else mentioned concrete. Bill, I'm just curious about what the reveal is, how high that high curb is you're talking about?
8
The
inches.
north side, 8 inch. And then there's a railing, it's tough to see on that detail. How tall is that railing off of the 8 inches?
Talking about the bridge or the road?
Just the cross, whatever shows there was a railing on that high curb on the north side. I
It's-
thought I saw a short
Jack, if you go
railing.
to the next,
can see it
No,
there.
the next one. Right now, it's kind of fuzzy, but it looks like 12 inches.
Okay, so
The
on the
railing is
left,
12 inches?
Excuse me?
The railing is 12 inches?
On top of the concrete
Okay.
curbing. And then you have the side, the walkway, and then a high rail on the
So it's like
pond side.
22 inches, like almost 2
And-
feet.
Yeah. And that, I can verify that, but it's, that's what it looks like on the slide.
I'm not a bridge guy either, but that to me, and I understand the rationale and the need, it certainly would need to be some protection from the roadway to the sidewalk. But to me, a 12-inch high railing, with kids are going to be walking, potentially riding bikes, that to me is a tripping hazard. I would think you'd want that railing a lot higher. Someone's fishing and they back up, you know, they're leaning over the high railing on the pond side, and they back up.
Mike, we'll
And
look
you're,
at
you're
it.
hitting a
We'll look at it.
12-inch high railing
We'll
at your shin level.
be
You're
happy
going
to
right
look at
into the
that.
roadway. So.
Is there a railing there now?
The railing is only going to be
The
12
ra-
inches high?
Well, because we're using a high curb, so it's it's 8,
But the railing is
I'll
off
say
the
8
back
to
of the
12.
walk.
Excuse me?
The railing is on top of, you've got a high
On top of
curb.
the car. So you have a high curb of, the high curb is, I believe it's 8 inches, but it could be 12.
You want
and
this,
then
Bill?
12 inch to the
Want
top
this?
of that rail.
Is it better in there?
That's pretty small.
Oh, pretty small in there too?
Whatever the case, it's clearly a low railing.
Well,
And
we
to
were
me,
try-
that's
we were
just
doing
more
a-
of a hazard than a safety feature, if you
And
ask me,
that's a
for the
detail that we can add.
pedestrians.
So we can look at the height. What we were trying to do, again, some of the comments that were coming up is, we'd have everyone saying, oh, don't put a high rail, we want the view of the pond. So we went with a high curb for the wheel, and then a low rail so that from the road, you don't block the view basically of the pond.
Well, you still
We
have
can
the
look
high
at-
rail on the outside.
We can
Bill.
look
That's
at the
not
height,
issue.
Mike, we'll look at the height, be happy to.
That's all I was asking.
Well, I just want to go
I
back
mean,
to
that's
that.
one of the details that we said we had to look at anyways, in terms of the railings and the guardrail.
To Mike's point, I just want to go back to that picture of the bridge that we showed earlier, the one down on the Cape, because I know that railing is 24 inches high.
It's only on one side, right?
Right,
It's
well,
only
it's
on-
on both sides.
That's on
The railing's on both sides, but to Mike's point, that railing in that picture, I know is 24 inches high. So you can take a look at what 12 inches would be. we can get that picture back up. That does seem awful low.
To me, it's a tripping hazard. So, and then just following up on that, the high curb you mentioned would be concrete. I think Margaret had mentioned, you know, with salt that's used on the road and the treatment during the winter time, I just would envision that not lasting long, that we should potentially look at using a granite curb instead, much more durable.
So on this you have,
Now, that railing there is 30 inches high.
that's on the outside.
Right.
On the roadside, you have nothing.
That's, so
So
what we're
what,
talking-
so what we have is on the roadside, 8 to 12 inch curb.
Yeah.
And then 12-inch rail. You have nothing over here. On the water side, we have, I think it's like 36 inches, or it's
Oh.
a standard rail.
So, okay.
So.
I'm talking on the roadside, Jim.
You're talking, I'm sorry, Mike, okay.
The design we have, clearly it prevents vehicles from
Jumping the curb.
jumping the curb
Okay.
and getting on the
I
walkway.
misunderstood, sorry.
Now, we'll look at it in terms of Mike's concern of a kid leaning over here fishing and then backing up and falling over.
Okay.
If we don't have, so, you know, and again, we'll look at that, and we'll see what we do.
Okay. I misunderstood.
And then, I think
Not a
you
bridge
now have
guy.
heard it, I just suggest they look at granite curbing as opposed to concrete, just for durability issues. And lastly, the $1.8 million estimate that was originally submitted to MassWorks, just curious where that came from, who put that estimate together, is that?
Bill put that together, or Bill's team.
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
Did you hear it?
I did, yes. So, and then presumably, if this goes out to bid, so it's going to be bid in conjunction with the small bridge grant. Bids come in over that 2.3 million, then the project doesn't get awarded, I assume. There's no additional monies, town monies,
town money.
appropriation that's going to
There's
be
no
put
town money
toward
in
it,
this.
or? Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
Hi, Matt Eustace from Boardman Street. I just had a couple questions or concerns I thought should be taken into account. The functionality of this bridge. You're going to have a lot of anticipated heavy traffic. A gentleman referenced the heavy mass highway spec. I think it's important that your consulting firm inform you what that is. You're going to have a lot of heavy vehicles at some point driving down this road. Is that going to beat up the asphalt? Are we going to have ruts in that that road 5 years down the road? So are you fixing something now that 10 years down the road its lifespan is decreased because of what it saw? The other question I had is the utilities. There was talk about going underground with some of the utilities. Have the utility companies been contacted about this proposed project?
Bob McGee's in touch with them now.
Okay.
He mentioned that earlier, you know.
Because it takes some time, so if you're serious about looking to get something put underground versus overhead, I'd imagine that the utility, like the electric company, is going to take a while. So if the time frame to bid this job is a couple months, are you going to get a true and honest answer from the utility that lets you make an informed decision for what you want to do? Also, they're going to have to upgrade. They're going to have a lot of load going into that new development, communication lines, everything. So if they're already going to have to upgrade what they have, it might be a good point to try to get them to do that. And then also the time frame. I question how realistic is the, are you going to get a good quality contractor to come in here and you're looking for a 3-month lead time from now. So I'd imagine that a lot of these contractors have their schedules for the summer filled up. I just don't know how good of a contractor you're going to get on such a short notice. I know it's a smaller job, it's not a huge job, but still, I'm just kind of concerned about that. You know, shoddy work could, like everyone said, you're doing it one time, just do it right. So.
Obviously, we'll bid the project, and, a lot of these MassWorks grants, that's unfortunately the way that, I don't want to go back to that answer again, but the timing of getting funding, and then you go through design, and then you bid them. So it's, contractors are used to that process as well. But it'll be a competitive bid process, and we'll look at both the dollar amounts of the responses as well as the contractors themselves.
I just want to make sure that Mr. Scully's comment was that public safety is very important. I'd like to
Sorry,
make
can we
sure
get your
that
name and address just for the folks at home?
Peggy Bedard, 28 Lawrence Street. I'd like to make sure that we know that public safety is actually number one, no matter what. Everything falls below that. This is a routine road, and I think that Mr. Diamond mentioned maybe getting someone from the neighborhood, maybe a few people from the neighborhood, to speak on these committees. I think that's a really good idea because we know what the concerns of that road are, and we really haven't gotten direct input. We've been sort of, there's been a lot of people that have consulted on this, but not any of the people from our neighborhood. And I think one thing that Mike brought up was the 12-inch beam. That actually, as a child, I would probably try to use as a balance beam. So I think that's an enormous safety issue. I think that's something that won't work under any circumstances, especially in a recreation area. And then just one other thing. We're having a lot of conversations about the recreation with all the traffic that's going to be going on for 7 years, because we're speaking specifically about the removal of earth. I don't see it as a very practical recreation area, and I'm not sure how that's being directed or addressed properly. That it should be kept as a recreation area, and I don't see how that's ever going to function for the next 7 years like that. So we're losing a gem, because once people stop doing something, they never do it again.
Other questions? Concerns? Well, thank you, guys. This is, like I said, I think it's, obviously, I know it's been great, and we'll continue. As Jim mentioned, you know, anytime we get, you know, we'll have an agenda every week, we had.
Before, yeah, no, go ahead.
My apologies, Margaret Cahaley, again, Cranberry Meadow. I just had one more concern, and now I'm almost gonna. I read into the Mass Works grant some, and my understanding was that you're almost supposed to be ready to be billed. They do allow some time for some engineering, and I feel like we almost applied for it a year too early. I just wanted to get that comment out there that, you know, if we were in better shape, we wouldn't be so rushed. And, you know, they, you know, from what I was reading about it, seems to be that you should have some plans in place and ready to build, and that's why they push for the next building season and all of that. And we've put our cart before the horse, I guess, and now we're scrambling here. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're not making that such a huge concern. We can always reapply for it at a later date. And, you know, if we do lose it at this point, where they said we got 15 years for that bridge. So, you know, that's all. Thank you.
Sorry, you got another?
No, I just want to restate that as I concur with the comments that I think we need to have a lot of input to this process. And so, really, if every 2 weeks we have something of meaningful conversation, I think these folks, as well as us, we're not bridge engineers, you know, and you're right, we don't live in that neighborhood, and we don't, I think that input is critical, and we need to make that available. And if it means it pushes the time frame, it pushes the time frame. It's okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Because we do have only one shot at this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
No, thank you for all coming.
Thank
You
you
can all
for all
stay.
the
We got all
input.
kinds of really good, interesting business happening now.
You do?
That's a pitch. Public service pitch. Public service announcement.
I got 3 pages of notes.
This is really good, interesting stuff after we get through Todd.
I was looking forward to it. You revise stuff. I love when I get revisions. It's like revising. I'm sure it's on. Are we doing that net? What do we,
Thank you.
you want to do the action? I would check where we want to start by the action.
Maybe
Where we
we
want to go?
set up-
Where we want to get Todd out to do the financial review so these guys can
Yeah, let's do Todd. Let
Okay,
Todd
yeah.
go home. Why don't we kill all the discussion items and
What's that? Oh, that's true too, yeah.
the run and gun was quick.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the right answer though. I mean, right now, nothing, yeah. I don't have
It
it.
is.
Where's Todd? I thought she was gonna print stuff for me. Susan print? saying, do I have, it is? Yes, I am. Okay, thank you, dear. Oh, yeah, yep.
You want to do the 40B update?
That's awesome.
People here?
Folks, if you are gonna stay, we need you to be quiet.
Please, thank you.
Please, thank you.
I don't have the letter, right? Susan, you want to do that? Okay. Well, since we got, what, you want to read it, Susan? You want me to read it, or who's it to? I can do that. Where does it talk about it?
So there, we have two of these, the
Right.
first one addresses safe
First
harbor,
one's to you.
Yeah, but, okay.
and then there's one to me.
All right.
I want to announce we're going to discuss the 40B update.
Okay. Next, we'll go over that, we have an update on the 40B and Safe Harbor for those folks at home and here. I don't know if folks are aware, but we received a couple letters from the Department of Housing and Community Development. One addressed to Susan Jacobson, our housing director, and one addressed to me as chairman of the board. I think, there's been a lot of questions around our 40B and lack of planning or thereof. So just wanted to read, obviously, good news is, as you know, Norfolk has a housing plan that is valid from October 11, 2017 to October 2022. The town had an older plan production plan that was valid from March 14th, 2007 to March 13th, 2012, all done by volunteers, I might add. For the purposes, the housing plan regulation became effective on January 22nd, 2008, when the Department of Housing and Community Development promulgated chapter this and chapter that. I'm not going to read all that. I mean, the thing I want to really get to, the last paragraph of the letter that Susan got was, thus, the lack of a valid housing production plan between 2012 and October 2017 would not have impacted the amount of 40B activity the town is currently experiencing. However, based on information recently submitted by the town didn't produce enough units by the end of calendar year 2017 to achieve a 1-year HPP certification, which will be provided in a separate cover. Because I know there's been questions, comments about that, and we're working towards that, and I think that's great news. Just, I don't know if that puts that to rest, but questions?
What does that mean?
What does what mean?
What you just read?
So it means we know from December 19th, 2017 to December 18th, 2018, we no longer have to accept 40B applications. Unfortunately, what that also means is that any applications that have previously been submitted, so the ones that are being worked on right now, the one on Rockwood Road was recently approved. The two at Abbeville, which are under consideration by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The one on the Boy Scout property, the Enclave, and then the two off of Seekonk Street are already in our queue, so those will have to be addressed by the Zoning Board of Appeals, despite this is safe harbor. What the safe harbor means is that we can reject any more new applications until December 18th of 2018. One thing that could happen is if we approve 16 more units, one way or another, and certainly if Abbeville is approved in any shape or form of the state it is right now, that would mean at least 16 more units. So that would be that safe harbor would be extended for another year. So that would mean up until December 18th of 2019, we would no longer have to accept any 40B applications. What the real goal for the town, obviously, is to get to 10%, 10%, which, based on all of our projections, would mean Abbeville would have to be approved, the Seekonk property would have to be approved, all of them would have to be approved, and we'd still only be at roughly 9%, between 9 and 10%. So, even though we're going to get a little safe harbor here, we're still going to be susceptible until we have more affordable housing units in town.
Did you say two 40B projects on Seekonk? I'm not aware of this.
It's the same one, but it's on the same piece of property, but because there are rental units as well as ownership units, it's actually two separate. Just like Abbeville is.
Two separate filings.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you.
May I add a couple of things to this? I'd like to add a couple of things more to this, too. There has been a lot of misinformation said in the public forum that is just plain wrong. This letter states very clearly that at no time, at any time, has this town qualified for safe harbor. Never, until this year, until December of this year. We have never qualified. There were no conditions associated with our getting that plan approved. It wasn't predicated on any project or not project. It is what it is. There's also been this statements that because there was no plan, there was nothing done. That statement is also not true. The Affordable Housing Trust, we were one of the first states in Massachusetts, first towns in the state of Massachusetts to form a municipal affordable housing trust. We did that, I think, in 2007, Sue? In 2007, exclusively to deal with this issue. And we've taken the town from 2% to 4.5%. That's not a lot, but it's more than we would have had any other way. There has been a plan. That plan has been worked since 2007 and been working diligently. We put 20 or 21 homes into inventory since that time in the affordable stock through the Affordable Housing Trust. They are also the ones that updated the plan, trying to get it back certified, even though we knew we didn't qualify for safe harbor. That plan only serves a benefit to qualify for safe harbor. It does provide a roadmap, but we have been working that roadmap since 2007. And we brought forward a number of different zoning articles trying to get things changed. The voters turned it down. The property on Rockwood Road, we tried to bring that back into the town so it could be, so that you could get a greater density. Voters turned it down through petition. Therefore, you left them no choice but a 40B, no choice. So we worked almost 2.5 years on Southwood, trying to work with the developer to come to a mutual agreement that would have gotten us very close to 10%. And affordable housing was almost the exclusive emphasis of that 2-year negotiations. But the financials didn't work. They just did not work. They didn't work for the town, and they didn't work for the developer. We're now back with the Archdiocese working at it again, because that property will get developed, and we want it to get developed to help us with the affordable housing problem, because the only way you can stop it is 10%, period. And there's going to be a new census in 2020, and that number's going to change, because we've got more homes now in Norfolk than we did in 2010. So it's an ongoing project that does not go away. Franklin has been in and out of 10% over several years. It's a flawed law, no question about it. But the implications that I've seen on Facebook that say that we've had our head in the sand is absolutely wrong. We have had, I don't know how many meetings with the Affordable Housing Trust. We have a lot of people who work very hard for almost 6 to 10 years working on this issue exclusively. Our meetings are held at noon. They're not televised, so that's a disadvantage we have. But I haven't seen anybody there. We've never had a single, they're posted, they're public. I've never seen a single person there, not one. And there are, I think, 7 of us on that committee, and we've worked very hard at this. We've looked at vacant land. We've bought lots. We've done a Habitat for Humanity. We did a modular home up here next to the school. We've taken every approach we possibly can to deal with it. But we have limited resources. We have limited funds. CPC has been phenomenal. CPC has given us a good deal of revenue. We bought the Gumps land with CPC, and we put 4 affordable homes on that property. And we got a 5th one down on Mirror Lake. So we got 5 homes with all the profits going to the town, built by a developer. There's an awful lot that's gone on. Could we do more? You could always say that. But a lot of people have worked really hard on this. And we could not have stopped these 40Bs. Could not have stopped them. And we don't like them any more than anybody else. But we're trying to mitigate them and trying to work through them as best we can and control the parts that we can control.
I'm not finding fault, I just.
No, I know. I'm not suggesting you are. Think of it as a public relations comment. I mean, I've seen a lot of posts that are just wrong. They're wrong. And it's emotional, I admit, because a lot of people have worked really hard at this. A lot of people. And I don't know. I've said enough.
Microphone, please, again, for folks at home. Mike, you need a microphone for the people at home. It's not for us, it's for folks at home so they can hear.
Thank you, Mr. Lehan. I certainly appreciate your input and you taking a proactive approach to this. And you're going about it the right way. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to look at what could potentially be developed, basically beat them to the punchline. Let's see if we can get someone else in here, because if it's coming to town, at least if we have more say and more control, it won't be such a disaster. And I understand that a lot of posts, I've been upset with posts on Facebook too, but I think the driving force behind that is that people are just
Oh, I understand.
Kind of like an exit
Believe me,
situation.
I understand.
People just being upset that it's coming. Maybe they fell asleep while everybody else was out, while you were all working. Other people just fell asleep about it. They just didn't think about 40B. They were just going on with their everyday lives and thought it's just not going to touch us, but it did. I did go to the State House. Susan was there too. I did see all these other developers. I went there, I heard, I saw with my own eyes. It was like, oh, we're, helping the poor, we're doing, and it was all, it was all same old, same old. And they were very comfortable in that setting. Did they turn this off?
You're gonna have to start over.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You got me on record now.
Battery is low. This one's okay.
Sorry, state of Massachusetts. Sorry.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Okay, there it is. They were very comfortable in that setting. They were, right at home, And I saw people, constituents from Norfolk there, Sherborne, Dover, and they were thinking like we're just playing our violins, but it's the same concerns over and over again. Water contamination. We don't have our own source of water. We're not on the MWRA. I even brought up the prison. That's affordable housing if I ever saw it.
We
Okay?
tried that.
I mean, they.
We found out it wasn't affordable.
It's not I mean,
We did try that, actually. We did approach the state on that.
Yes, I mean, I just said that there should be an affordable housing, law for small towns like, under 35,000, and then other ones that, fit the criteria for Cambridge, Malden, Somerville, these other areas, because it's not one size fits all. And I just saw it, and I just didn't feel like we got anywhere, so.
Thank you for going, though. It is hard,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
It is upsetting.
And I don't mean to imply that people shouldn't be upset. I understand it. Believe me, it's people are angry, and they have a right to be. I'm angry. I live here too. I'm angry about it as well. I'm angry about the law because it totally takes away our ability to manage our own community.
It takes away
And-
local
and
control.
I
yeah.
can't, but I can't change it. I mean, we have to follow it. And it's hard. It's very hard, but we're trying. And it's frustrating when, that anger turns, in some regards, personal towards boards and people that are trying hard. And not perfect. No one claims they are, but we've been working at it a long time. I spoke at town meeting when we tried to make this zoning change maybe 5 years ago. And the town turned it down, and I made the statement. I said, you leave these people no choice but 40Bs. I made that on town floor, and a citizen got up and told me I was just using scare tactics.
No.
We knew this was coming. We could see it, and we've been trying to work with it as best we can. But if you don't own the land, and we've looked at parcels that we own to find out if it's usable. I mean, Southwood is the perfect target. We really had high hopes for that. I mean, we worked awful hard at that. Awful
Yeah,
hard.
where it is on 1A. It was a good
Yeah,
location.
it's
for that.
perfect. It's perfect. Most people think it's in Foxborough, Walpole anyway.
Yeah.
And you got a prison for a neighbor. I mean, it's a perfect location for a development that could solve the problem.
What, the money just didn't come through for that, or?
No, there was all kinds of.
It was very complicated. The Archdiocese owns the land. They wanted to sell it to, I would call him more of a middleman, a broker of finances, and then he in turn would sell it to the developer. Or multiple developers, really, was the risk. And we were trying to get legal contracts in place so that whatever the deal is that we cut, that guaranteed so many affordable units and things of that nature, was enforceable. And when you start getting into second and third parties, I mean, it reached a point, we literally had 4 legal agreements in front of us to wrap this together, and it was just a lawsuit waiting to happen. I mean, if you sell it, the developer comes in, he buys it from the Archdiocese, at the end it goes and he sells a piece of it to Toll Brothers, and I'm making this up, Toll Brothers and another to another firm to do this, that, and the other, and they said, well, I didn't sign that agreement. Why am I bound by that? And we were trying to tie that all together. And we hired the lawyer that did the Westwood project. We hired outside counsel to work on this. And, really the developer didn't want to bend on certain things, and he walked away. But it is back on the market. The Archdiocese has taken a different approach. They're involving us at the front end now,
Well,
as
that's
opposed to the
good.
back end. We've met with them a couple of times to kind of outline what we think would work and what our priorities are, and affordable housing is number one. And we'll see.
Actually, if you're involved initially, that could give developers the impression that maybe Norfolk could be worked with, because I know it has a reputation in the past of not wanting.
Exactly right. We want to be a partner in developing that. That's well said.
Because I know a couple builder friends, the minute I said Norfolk, they're like, no, we're not
The
going to
no in
Norfolk.
Norfolk?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You're all afraid of going here and getting tied up and everything, but if you can, I don't know, somehow, get that message out there that you're willing to be a partner with a builder, whatever,
We
it could
have
be a
met
win-win.
with the real estate brokers on this,
Yeah.
and we've even agreed on sort of a, what would you call it? Just sort of a
Conceptual
straw
zoning
man
change.
plan,
Yeah.
if you will, on what could go on that property that we would love.
Yes.
That we think would work for developer. I mean, we learned a lot in that 2.5 years.
Wow.
I mean, it
Interesting.
wasn't a waste of time. We learned a lot.
And that's a learning experience. They did mention, however, at the State House, something called 40R.
Yep,
Mm.
we looked at that too.
What exactly is that?
It involves more around, it's a different version of 40B, and you get incentives for using 40Rs from the state, but it requires a certain level of density, and you need public transportation, and all. We don't have a place that it fits at this particular point. We have looked at it.
I will put that out there that if the message is, if the word is out there that you are willing to have volunteers from the town come and help with these boards, I for one would be willing to help out. But I mean, it looks like you have a lot on your hands. Okay.
Have you got the agreement there? I mean-
have a piece of paper to sign right now.
I'm
Thank
a
you. I would
mother
love
of,
it.
4,
Yeah.
and nurse practitioner, and I came from a 40B in Quincy. I could help. My dad's a retired attorney. You never know.
We'd
So.
love to help.
And I guess I'll just speak to the point about no in Norfolk, that type of thing. And I've heard that over the years, but, from what I've seen, about 13 years, including 6 years on the planning board, I mean, we've held people accountable to the best of our ability, but, that's what you want. And I think that's what the residents want. But I think we're proud of the construction that's taken place. I think, we've accomplished a lot over at 1A and 115. And I think the citizens appreciate having some of the amenities now that exist in that area. So, I mean, that took a lot of involvement, and it took these types of meetings and getting input from the public. And at the end of the day, it does take accountability, on behalf of the developers and those difficult discussions. And we've had them with them, but I think the whole idea of no in Norfolk and we don't want development, for the right development, yeah, we do want it. And as Jim said, Southwood was particularly interesting because, as we all get older, you hear about memory care and the need for some of these types of facilities. And, there's some concepts that were discussed at that site as, it's kind of a combination of different things, residential, some commercial, but perhaps memory care because it used to be a hospital facility. So that was very interesting. And, as I get older, I can appreciate some of those services more and more for,
Hopefully you don't need them soon, but yes.
Yeah, for our people. And so let's hope that becomes a viable project at some point and doesn't overburden our schools and public safety and such. That's the objective, to do it smartly.
We've heard so many groups against projects. I would love to, have a group for a project and, help out in that sense with the public. And I, for one, coming from Quincy and passing over my own hometown of nowhere to come here, because I came directly from Quincy, I appreciate what you've done here, because I know what poor planning looks like. I left it behind. I know what it looks like. I don't want that here in
Thank you
Norfolk.
for your comments.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, use the microphone, Emery, please, for the folks at home.
I'm just curious, was the decontamination ever completed over there?
At Southwood?
Yeah.
No.
It's contained. but
It's
not-
contained, but
Oh.
not removed.
And that would be that's what the diocese wants to make sure they get out from underneath, and obviously be responsibility of a buying party too. That makes it a little bit more challenging too, so. Other
Was
questions?
someone-
Are there any, I know I talked to Susan once about the other methods to get into safe harbor, because we have a lot of Army Corps of Engineer land are there any running calculations? Are we getting close on that front either?
No. On the percentage of land, no.
Right.
Yeah. We've backed out all the state-owned land, the town-owned land, and so it's the calculation of affordable housing space over market rate space or total space, and we are not close.
Not
Because the affordable housing space tends to be very dense, so it's,
They don't give you much credit for the land. Yes.
I didn't know about that meeting that's at noon time, which I don't know about most people. I can't make noon time, so maybe that's something that should be considered doing it at other times as well. And maybe we should actually make a public effort to let people know of things like that.
They're all posted. All
On the
meetings-
website?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, I know.
Like all of these meetings.
I know.
Well, maybe
people-
social media was
Right,
what
people
I
have,
was thinking.
people have mentioned that too, and I mean, the first tip is, Junkie, just Norfolk has a place where you can sign up, and I think a lot of folks get those, but you automatically get an email every time a new meeting's posted for any public board, right? So, I know it's pain, I've seen the comments too, we gotta do better on social media, so, yeah, we need to hire a 22-year-old kid or girl to come in and do it, but it's your tax dollars, we could try to fund the position, it's just, then we'd be cutting something else.
What about an
Yeah, we hold them during the day more because of the people that are on the committee. A lot of them are on other committees, and most of us are out 4 or 5 nights a week. And so we've usually been holding them around noon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or those times when we can, there's 7 on the committee, I think. One of the members is our veterans agent. Sue is the director of that board. I chair that committee. They're all citizens. They're all, but they're all involved. And we even have a minister, because we want all the help we can get, and divine intervention is never refused. But it is posted. We'd love to have you.
But it is hard to get through, but like I said, Jim made a good point, these, folks on different boards, so.
That's the biggest problem, is finding
Getting volunteer.
times when everybody can get there. That's the biggest problem we have.
I don't know if this is that way. So the other question I had is, I think it's great that you're doing a lot of stuff, but how did we let the housing production plan lapse for 5 years? Because wouldn't that have mitigated how much of the 40B we have to take?
Yeah, but no, you can read the whole thing, but I'll just answer the question. It was done by a board that was called the Affordable Housing Committee. It was that simple. It was a group of volunteers. I remember the woman that chaired it, who doesn't live in town anymore. And it was out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I have no excuse for that. When we learned of it, we immediately got to work on it, realized it was beyond the capacity for volunteers to do it. It was beyond our scope. You came to the meetings with a consultant, so you know the depth and the requirements, which dramatically changed from when we first submitted that plan. Very different set of guidelines and rules, and you've got to, you were there. You have to make sure that you meet all of what the state wants to see in that plan. So we hired a professional, and she put the plan in. But the point being, we understand it lapsed, but as that letter clearly states, it had no impact, none whatsoever, in our ability to prevent 40Bs. That is in the letter from the state. So while, yes, it did lapse, and it shouldn't have, and that was, the committee just dissolved. We tried getting volunteers for it, and it just dissolved. And then we formed the Municipal Housing Trust, and they took on the responsibility. But it had that plan, and we have been working the plan. That's the point I'm trying to make. That just because something is into the state doesn't mean we didn't have a plan and weren't working that, because we were. We've been working it since 2007. And I guess that's where I see the disconnect. And because I've been on that committee since 2007, and we have spent a lot of time working on this, a lot of time.
You probably need an intern for social media.
You're looking at somebody that's not on Facebook, okay? I agree. I have to get my grandkids to help me how to do it. But I think you can understand why we think some of the comments are a little unfair, and yet I understand why they're made, because people don't know. I understand the dichotomy there. I got it, but.
But I think both sides need to be honest in their comments.
I do too.
And not present comments that are incorrect. If you don't know all of the information, make a telephone call and ask someone before you post something in social media that's absolutely untrue. I agree with you, Sue.
Other questions?
Okay.
Sorry, was there a question? I didn't know. Oh, okay, you had the microphone, sorry, okay. Oh, no. Oh, thank you. Okay. Moving on, Todd, we pushed you back from the
Todd, you're on, buddy.
financial revenue with financial.
7:02, right, when Todd's scheduled.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for staying.
It's all you, oh, you want to wait till, it's all yours, Todd. I kept you here long enough. It's,
Todd, why don't you clear the room?
Marty, the numbers have changed since you arrived, haven't they?
What's that?
The numbers have probably changed since you arrived.
No, they're still effective as of 12/31.
I take 12:31, there you go.
Oh, thank
Wait
you
a
for
minute.
having.
Mr. Chairman, just one question.
Need a microphone. Sorry, it's just, again, for people at home, Karen, you know, I've watched them before, I'm like, I don't know what they said.
Choose them both.
Use them both.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was late for the.
Sorry.
Well, it's for the people at home, so it won't just because it doesn't magnify it or whatever the right word is.
I apologize for the beginning of the meeting, but I noticed on the agenda, it mentioned an update to the conversation the town had regarding, conversation with Mr. Hart.
Yep.
Okay, so that's still on the agenda.
Yeah.
You want me to, I can cover that right now real quickly if you'd like.
Poor Todd, sorry, Todd.
No, go ahead.
Totally up to you.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
no.
that's in reference to, we had a complaint filed by a citizen saying that we had, there was an open meeting violation. This relates to a meeting that took place in April. We were at actually the middle school for another meeting, and we were posted for that meeting. And I relayed to the board a conversation that I'd had with Mr. Hart. That was the extent of what took place in that meeting. And so we agreed that we would restate what that conversation was. And what it was I received, I think it was an email from Mr. Hart asking if we could have a cup of coffee. I responded back, Mr. O'Hart, sorry. I responded back, sure. And so I met with him here in Town Hall. We met upstairs, had a cup of coffee. The conversation lasted about 10, 12 minutes. That's how brief it was. He said that he had heard that the town had a lot of money, and would they be willing to buy his property on Seekonk Street? And I said, well, when you say the town has a lot of money, you're talking about CPC, I assume. And he said, yes. And I said, well, you don't need me for CPC. You can go talk to them yourself. I said, but what do you want for the property? He said he wanted over, I think he said somewhere around it was over $800,000. And I said, well, I know you purchased the property for under $400,000. I said, let me explain to you how CPC works. I said, first, they have to do an appraisal, and they can only pay whatever that appraisal says. They cannot pay in excess of that. I'm just taking a wild guess that the appraisal is going to be a whole lot closer to what you paid for it versus than what you want for it, but that's just a guess. I said, but that process, they have to do the appraisal. That takes several months. Then they would have to go vote whether or not they want to pursue that. And then they would have to, of course, you would have to agree to whatever they agreed to, and then it would have to go to town meeting. I said that whole process would take 4 or 5 months. He said, well, I need an answer in 2 weeks. I said, why 2 weeks? He said, well, I want an answer before the state rules on our project, which we knew would be in about a couple of weeks. And I said, well, that's impossible. And he said, well, if the Board of Selectmen will give me a letter guaranteeing that that sale will go through, I will accept that. I said, well, not only is that impossible, that's illegal. We can't guarantee what another board will do, nor can we guarantee a town vote, so I guess there's nothing more to discuss. That was the end of the discussion. The conditions that he set forth were, well, they were illegal. I mean, we can't bind CPC, we can't bind town meeting. We have, can't figure it out half the time anyway, so so that was the extent of the conversation. Lasted about 12 minutes. I did say I'd do a follow-up. I told the board I'd send him an email saying if you want to rethink it and sell it for what you bought, let me know. Needless to say, I never heard another word. So that is the conversation I shared with the board in April. I deemed it to be a sharing of a conversation. There was no deliberation. There was no debate. There was nothing to debate. And we did not, contrary to one of the claims, prevent the town from having an opportunity to buy something because the conditions he set forth were illegal. It was not an option for us.
I was just curious.
No, that's, no, fair question, but that's what that issue was. Yeah.
This is good. Not to backpedal, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Chairman for his permission to do this, but I have one more question regarding Mr. Burley.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, like, events for fee, like where he charges, you know.
Okay, that works. And the board mentioned that they have told Mr. Brogan, that he will have no more events for the year 2018 until he applies for an entertainment license with the Board of Selectmen. My question is if Mr. Brogan decides to not charge for the event this coming, which is January 27th, does the board still have the authority to shut that event down?
Well, I think the attorney's gonna discuss that event, because that's and that's where we get that debate about whether or not he's charging a fee, charging an admission fee or an
People have
entrance.
been trying to push the buttons, and you're not supposed to touch the buttons.
Thank you.
So the bar for us to get over is whether or not he's charging an admission fee or an entrance fee. The area that the two lawyers need to kind of talk about is when he's having a lesson. And, because we've had discussions, and I'm not sure I've had discussions with
Whoa, working now.
because there are all kinds of horse places around town that have lessons. So they're charging a lesson fee. And so then we get into this area where he's got this jackpot event, and in our lawyer's mind, and I agree with him, that looks and smells like it's getting to the event level. So we're encouraging him not to do that. And I think, the lawyers we're gonna I'm gonna have to have more of a discussion with the attorney this week, about what his discussion with the other attorney goes like, because, in our opinion, he can't have that event if he's gonna have this jackpot portion to it. If he's having lessons, then he can have the lessons. He just can't have an event.
So I guess the bottom line is then if he's not charging, he can have the 25 people that he's invited, because these aren't people that are his friends or a casual kind of get-together. This was an advertised event with a cap of 25 people to the Northeast Six Shooters. Personally, I think that's a little different than asking, a couple of
Yep.
folks from the Northeast Six Shooters to come over and say, let's practice. This could be up to 25 people. To me,
Agree.
We agree.
that classifies an event whether he charges money or not.
It's really great. I mean, like you said, I agree too. I mean, it's not that, I think we're all, other than him and maybe and his attorney versus, abutters and us, like you said, it is an event. It's just, I mean, again, until we get the court to rule, I mean, not even when they rule, they're not even black and white sometimes. And, I mean, it is so great. Because it isn't just 6 of your friends, but.
It's a matter of whether he's trying to circumvent the
Right.
license,
That's the key.
basically.
I think Dr. Carpenter
You know.
said it in one meeting very appropriately. If it smells like a duck, looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And, or something like that.
I
Might
made
not
the-
have been a duck.
I made the comment at one of the meetings several months ago about the reasonableness standard, because we're kind of in quicksand here, to be honest with you.
Along with the neighbors.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We were in it together.
So, if, my opinion is if he's circumventing the license by doing something creative in terms of the fee in some other form, that's an issue. That's an issue with me as a member of this board. I can't speak with for my colleagues, but I believe it's an issue for them as well. So that's the reasonableness standard. That's all I got. That's all I got.
We're stopping, we get sued. This is what's gonna happen.
There it goes.
I guess as the neighbors though, come the 27th and we hear shooting, we don't know if we can call the police with a complaint or
Definitely call.
kind of what the decision from the board has been that the event is to be shut down or the event is not to be shut down. Kind of leaves us in limbo.
Well,
I think part of the problem and part of the goal, and it doesn't help us for the 27th, but so we go forward first and then we'll back up. Part of the goal, long-term, is as we're learning through this process, and hopefully each year we do it better, is that, one of the things that Dave wrote to us was, when we have him come in for the license, he comes in and he explains all the events, not just the licensed events, but he's gonna explain to us all the activities. Because, you know, and I think the board has said it to me before, and I'm sure they'll say it again, is, you know, we go through and we approve something, and then we find out, well, something else is happening, and it's a duck again, you know, so that is the hope, is that we get into a process through the license application that he's gonna come in, and it's a little mini version of Gillette Stadium, because Dave used to work on Gillette Stadium as well. And, you know, they come into the town of Foxborough, and they not only talk about Bon Jovi on concert night, but they also talk about Bon Jovi on practice night, and that's what we wanna talk about here. Because we're getting smarter now. We know not just the Saturday is a problem, but we know Tuesday night is a problem. And we know, so if he wants to have events, then he's got to have more rigid, we've got to have a agreed upon process to get up to that event. So, I also am hoping that Dave and the attorney will try and figure out what's going on the 27th. We're going to strongly encourage them not to have it, and if we have to shut it down, we'll follow the advice of council, I think, but certainly call and complain, and by that time I'll have worked it out with town council, and certainly the dispatchers and the police officers will know what town council's direction is.
Well, could we do this? I mean, in fairness to the neighbors, I mean, right now, we've sent him a letter saying you can't hold it without a license.
No, we told him he can't have events, again.
Can't have events, and we interpret
the
his meeting.
definition of events, that's,
Right.
yeah.
We interpret that, I think we all interpret it, I do anyway, as an event. If something happens in conversations between the two attorneys that changes that, I mean, you've been very good at disseminating information, can we, if we know in advance, we'll let you know. Is that, I mean,
I'll let the neighbor.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't know that we'll know any, if we don't hear anything different, I think our-
We'll have to know something. I mean,
well, yeah,
we've clearly
good
got
point.
to-
We'll know something. I can't imagine that this is just gonna come to it, but it might. Yeah, I mean, who knows?
27th is my birthday, Jim, so I really don't want to be working on this problem on the 27th.
Happy birthday in advance.
Putting that
I'll
out there
I'll
for
bring you
so
the
I'm gonna
cake.
try and resolve this
I'll bring you the
before the
cake.
27th.
I guess what I
Can
what
you
I
identify
see
yourself?
is
Again, for the folks at home, Dr. Carpenter again.
Dr. Carpenter from 120 Seekonk Street. I guess my big problem, and I recognize what you're doing, and I think it's great. I have a problem with that we're not being proactive, we're being more reactive with this individual who has a history of just going ahead and doing it and then going, oh shucks. And that bothers me because I can see him going ahead and doing it, and then it doesn't get shut down, and then come in and he gets a slap on the wrist, and everything's fine. And that's what I'm concerned about here. I don't know how else to do it. I don't know whether, outside of having someone there monitoring what's going on.
But I think that, to your point, Doctor, I think.
Is there something that if he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, that he gets more than just a slap on the wrist?
Yeah, because remember, that based on all the, as Jack was saying, as part of the growing process, we wanted to articulate with the applicant what we have now planned, penalties in place for a violation. So like you said, if he goes ahead and says, oh shucks, I think like the first, I don't have it in front of me right now, Jim probably remembers everything, but like say the first offense, $500, then a continuing offense is more,
$500,000 and loss of
and then
license.
loss of license. So, and we didn't have that in place before. As Jim mentioned, or Jack mentioned, this is an evolving process. I know you folks are suffering around the neighborhood about that, but we're getting better and better. And so the oh shucks doesn't work. I mean, it might, it can't work. And again, I think it goes back to relying on counsel. I mean, I'm just nervous about shutting him down without, I know maybe it sounds like we're hiding behind counsel, but without at least saying that that's a prudent thing to do, only because, not me personally, but the town's then open to a lawsuit. And we're all town citizens. I don't know how much it would amount to, what it would be. But my only concern is I put you guys, put us all in a legal problem because we just proactively shut it down because, as we all agree, it's skirting the edge. So we took our opinion, of non-legal folks and said, Jack, please authorize the chief. I want this event shut down per order of the Board of Selectmen. It comes back. Again, it would take probably years and days to litigate, but that opens us up. Now, again, at least I can go back and say, I can with good conscience say, this is advice of our council. We're volunteers up here, none of us have a law degree, especially in this area. And then we relied on advice of council. He could still take action, which every person can do that, but I think we have a better standing at that case. Doesn't mean it's defensible.
And just to echo what Scott's saying, we have not given council direction to say, keep us out of the lawsuit. We're also not telling him to get us into one either. But, I mean, we just want him to tell us what the right way to approach this is. There's no agenda to slant this left or right. And we've been really clear on that. And I think council's been very clear on that. We're not, there's no winner or loser in our view. It's what the law says we have to enforce and not enforce. And we're in virgin ground, but we are better at it, and I don't think the, I forgot to tell you routine's gonna work.
But now, if you have an agreement that's well-written and clear, where would he be in line to sue anybody?
Well, the agreements are annual.
Yeah.
It's an annual agreement, so right now, we don't have any agreement with him for 2018.
Right, I know.
So we don't have an agreement.
So I just didn't see the logic of thinking that he had any grounds to sue when.
Well, what he's,
We shut him down, and we're not, and
we don't have legal,
we don't have legal right to do that.
right. I mean,
But he doesn't have a license either. He doesn't have.
Well,
an agreement
again,
either.
that's why we said it's gray, and it's up to, ideally the court would decide this for us and take it off our hands. But, he would just argue, I don't need, there's been arguments in the past saying, I don't need an entertainment license. I'm under this certain exemption. So we shut him down. He'd say, you had no right to shut me down because I didn't need an entertainment license. And again, it would be in the hands of the courts to decide if in fact he does need an entertainment license, if in fact, what can we enforce into that? We'll go on forever. And then, that would be the case. So, he can always argue, like any other citizen could say, I don't need that.
Yeah, but one thing you have to keep in the back of your mind too, and again, this is the pessimistic side of me that assumes people are the worst that they are, is that we also have to remember what, if he was if we shut down somebody in this type of situation, and again, I'm not picking on Mr. Brogan, but he is in the situation he's in. Say we shut down his event. There's nothing that can prevent him from just sitting in the back of his property with 35 people and shoot their guns off all day.
Every day.
Or ride motorcycles around their property all day. I mean, and we've seen it in other places,
We had that very incident.
yeah, so.
He can't.
the motorcycle.
So that's the, that, we have to balance that as well, and make it work for, again, we have to make it work, we have to try and make it work for everybody. It's never gonna work, but we're gonna try and make it work for everybody.
There's no common sense regulations about what's reasonable to do all day long in terms of shooting guns and yelling.
Reasonable, that's the word,
I
that's the.
mean, but you have a certain
Add into that common
regulations
sense.
about noise. I mean, I guess it wouldn't, well.
Don't forget,
I have an abutter that rides his kids riding motorcycles around the back property all day. Drives me crazy.
on conservation land, by the way. Not
When they're on conservation
On
land,
town
I can
and
do
con-
something
town-owned
about it. While he's
conservation
on his own
land.
land, he's got 5 acres.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. When they get over on town land, then I get to call the police and piss off my neighbor, but, just returning the favor, so.
I see.
Yes.
So when are you moving?
Cindy Taman, 117 Seekonk. Because we brought up the Tuesday night issues about the shooting, I just wanted to let everyone know, if you didn't already know, that it's not just like one lesson and that's been done with it. It lasts for hours. And there's a lot of cars over there, a lot of, it's a lot of trailers are coming in. It's not just like one little lesson. And they're going, most of the time when they have these on Tuesday night, it's till 8 o'clock at night. And this was when it was dark. And I know that I get up really early, and so I start to settle down by 8, and we were still hearing guns, and I'm right next door to them. And I also wanted to say that we can't be afraid of this man. I mean, we have to stick up for what is right for the town, what is right for the neighbors, what is right for the zoning in this area. We can't be afraid to say, we have to be gentle with this man because then he's going to go in the back of his property and start shooting.
No, we're not being gentle, and we're not afraid. That's not the issue. We have to be legal. That's the issue.
And to reference to Tuesday, I mean, that's like a 4-H event, unfortunately. He's got some exemptions there. The whole practice is, whether it's 25 trailers move in, 600 trailers move in, I mean, he's got some serious, at least in the way we've been told, some serious exemptions to be able to do that.
But they're charging money.
It's a
And
lesson,
not-
though.
and
That's a
that-
4-H,
but-
that's an agricultural thing.
But-
Every horse boarder in town.
But he's not agriculture, and it is
Well, whatever his
not
exemption is,
this
46-1A or
person
B,
that's
he's got
giving the
rights.
the lessons. The person that's
We're not,
giving.
we're not walking on a treadmill on this, believe me. We're just, but we are gonna, remember, as much as we may not like it, he has rights as well. And so we're following what council tells us, again, with no direction to lean left or right. You know, and it's new to us. It's new to us. I mean, we now have to look, I mean, this is exploding into something, I mean, Community Day. It's an event. We've never issued an entertainment license for Community Day.
We now have.
Now we have to. You know, 4-H clubs hold events all the time, all over town. I don't know how many horse farms, but there are a lot. We have a lot of 61A property in Norfolk. Now, you know, where is the line on Jane and Paul's farm, having tractor rides and stuff like that? Now, they don't have any neighbors, you know, I mean, you know, so nobody, and everybody loves Jane and Paul's farm. So it's not controversial, but it's still an agricultural event.
But it's
And
a
so this
farm.
is opening up, and this is opening up a whole world that frankly, we don't want to go to. I mean, you know.
I get it, you know, and I have horses.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, I love horses. And, you know, on our property, we can have horses, but I chose not to, and we board them.
Yeah.
But the fact is that we have this person that keeps just buying up land and buying up land in a residential area, you know, and doing things that you know you normally do in a residential area, and that's the key.
Yeah, but all these horse farms are in residential areas, all of them.
They don't make the kind of noise that he's making.
Well, that's a different issue, and that's what we're trying to control. But, you know, they're all in residential areas, all of them.
Todd's here.
One more, then we have to move on to finance. Because Todd's, you know, I'm paying him by the hour, and I'm seeing my finance budget go up by the minute, so.
Well, the numbers have changed since we started, so.
I was done with my comments, but when I hear the board refer to Mr. Brogan as agricultural, the neighbors sat with John Curran for close to 2 hours, and we had a very heart-to-heart conversation and shared.
I'm sorry, I thought the word agriculture, again, I'm sorry, I'm just, again, until it's been decided, how is properties governed, whether it's A, B, C, D, or F, until the court tells me, or a lawyer tells me?
I don't want to confuse, because, and we should have Dave, let's have Dave, DeLuca, talk about that, because I know there's a big, and I don't want to say something wrong, so, but there is a big confusion between chapter 61A, 61B property, and the tax benefits that has, and then the related zoning privileges that agricultural land has. They aren't necessarily linked perfectly, so we should, but let's have somebody.
But, you know, so I use sometimes wrong words, what I call it, A or B. I just think until I get clear. I don't have clarity on, like you said, whether it should just be a horse farm with no shooting, or it should be a B because he's allowed target shooting. And what Mr. Curran says, he didn't address that to me, and that's, you know.
Yeah, I understand Mr. Curran, I believe, met with Jack. I'm not sure if you met.
I met with them as well.
Okay, with Jim Leehand also, and he made it very clear to the neighbors that he is in 61B designation, and he's not in 61A designation, and should not receive the benefits of that chapter land designation. He went on to say that there is a sentence in the description of just what is allowed on 61B property, and one of the items is target shooting. However, it states in the description of 61B chapter land that the target shooting is to be non-commercial. Mr. Brogan long crossed the line of commercial versus non-commercial. He's collecting money from international and national associations, charging a fee, and that's his intent. His own words to the board have been, he is growing this business to support him in retirement. And he's not gonna stop. He's gonna want more events, and I think 60 people at an event is a commercial event.
Well, it would be, this will sound, I hope, okay, but there'd be nothing that would serve us all better than to have this decided by someone that has judicial capability of deciding it. I don't disagree with you at all.
Well, see, Jim, I just go by the simple definition of what's commercial. Commercial is for profit. And Mr. Brogan is running this organization, he calls it a farm, but he's running this business as a commercial enterprise in a residential neighborhood. It's for profit. That's his primary
Isn't
purpose.
Jane and Paul's?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
Jane and Paul's.
Jane
is
and
for
Paul's.
profit.
is-
That's why I don't want to
Right,
keep going on with this
right.
discussion until we get lawyers or
Right,
courts.
But they're agricultural. They are agricultural, Jane and Paul's. They're 61A.
Right, again, I'm not gonna, without a lawyer here, I mean, we keep talking about the same thing over and over again. you know,
Right.
My thing would be let the courts decide.
We will
But we'll
We will
continue
let
to
you know
enforce.
before, whatever we know in terms of what action will or will not happen for Saturday, we'll let you know as soon as we know.
Okay,
Sunday.
Sunday.
Bring the cake on Sunday.
Jack's birthday.
Which day do I bring the cake?
Sunday.
Sunday, okay.
Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate it, thank you, guys.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks for
no,
hanging in
thank
there.
you.
Speak after the fact.
That's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So are you done with your presentation, Todd? Just
You all
jump right in.
you all have it in front of you. I take jump in, I'm gonna stop interrupting before anyone else comes up with another idea. Go.
Okay, so you have in front of you the summary sheet for the project of the
Ooh.
police station, as well as the summary sheets for actual to, budget to actual for general fund, the water enterprise, and the water, wastewater enterprise. So I put these together to show you kind of what we budgeted and where our actual numbers are as of 12/31/07, 17, sorry. Right now, it's just this year's budget to actual. You know, the next go-around that I present this to you, I hope to have a couple more years in there. That way we can start to see more trends.
Would you want to talk about the complete
So I hope to have that report a little bit better
Right after this.
and more informative. So for the, if you're looking at the budget to actual for the general fund, revenues are at the top, expenditures are on the bottom. As we budgeted in the budget process last year, we had $300,000 of free cash that we're gonna be utilizing, plus $25,000 coming in from cemetery lots to help offset, to balance the budget. And those are the numbers down at the bottom. The budget numbers on the left-hand side is what we budgeted for. The actual numbers are, again, year-to-date numbers as of December 31st. And so far, we're pretty much on trend of where we need to be. There's really no outliers.
Being that investment income, never mind, that's a great return on income, 212%.
But it's a small number, so.
I'm just
It is
teasing, no,
small.
I
Well, we can't,
I mean, I just looked
unfortunately.
at it quickly. You wanna
We
be
tried to
positive?
invest it in the Van Dyke International Stocks Index Fund, but they wouldn't let us do that.
I mean, it is good, right, when you have 53 on the positive, 47
Todd,
on the negative.
am I assuming that the real estate and personal property taxes is in excess of what we anticipated because people prepaid their taxes last year?
It is a little bit higher. There was a little bit of an influx, especially that last week.
Yep.
And I give kudos to
I was
the
one of them.
Treasury Department that
That makes sense, yeah.
took that on. We opened up, people had a lot of questions, there was a lot of controversy, a lot of phone calls, people upset, saying, you know, I want to pay the whole tax for next year.
Pay the next 3 years.
Fortunately, even.
6 months was it.
That's all you can do in 6 months?
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Well, it wasn't until December 27th that the IRS actually gave out a statement as to what they were going to deem
Acceptable.
Why hurry?
acceptable.
Why hurry?
Right.
Plenty of
So,
time.
but prior to that, we had indicated that we would accept the third and fourth payments, third and fourth quarter payments prior to January, and they would be applicable to be applied to them. Because in essence, IRS determined that the amount has to be assessed. And if a town changes its procedures, meaning, you know, we don't have an assessment for first and second quarter of 19, but if the town changes its procedures to do that, they would not accept that as a deduction.
Are employee benefits and insurance just a matter of sequencing of payment?
Sequencing of payment, we have to fund a lot of the insurance all up front, day one. And there are some other indirect costs that are gonna offset some of the healthcare we get back from the water fund, SAC program, and Affordable Trust.
Yeah, and the Norfolk County Retirement Assessment is we pay that
That's
July
fine.
1st.
Yeah.
That's a $2 million.
So those are the kind of the numbers. Again, nothing really that's shocking as far as for this year. Again, next time I sit down with you on the general fund, I hope to have at least a couple more years. That way we can start to see trends, you know, how we performed over previous
yeah.
years, and then on a going forward
Is it
basis.
cyclical,
get
is it
receipt.
monthly? Yeah, is it some kind of, okay.
And it'll be based on the quarter at hand, so, next quarter we'll have 3/4 of the information, but I'll do that respectively over the past 2 to 3 years.
I mean, you're gonna go back build that, or just say 3 years down, when we're sitting in front of this board 3 years, are you gonna
No, no, I'm
back
going
those?
to back build it for next meeting.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see the
That's
transaction.
much better than the other finance director we had. Who was that guy years ago? Oh, wait, he's the town
The one we
administrator.
had 12 or 13 years ago?
Yeah.
We didn't even get reports.
30.
Thank you, Todd. I'm sure Jim has questions since he's the finance guy here.
I just wanted to throw an idea out to you guys, because I woke up the other night at
Not
3
to interrupt you, Jim, but,
Okay.
sorry. Again, this is my first iteration, so if there's stuff that you guys want me to change, you're not seeing here, more
If you could
definitive.
push the revenues up to about 76%, that would be
I
great.
like
You
it,
can't
yeah.
fudge the numbers?
Yeah, I get you. Oh, thank you.
Oh.
I'm glad- I'm glad
But
you
I can
can.
present them in a different way, if you like.
I like it. No, it's very.
I was happy to fudge numbers.
I like it, though, Todd. It's pretty, to me, it's pretty straightforward. It shows we're on budget. I like
Actually,
to
that
see
is, fudging of
53%
numbers has
above.
never been a
I mean,
concern
it
for
could change,
me.
but that's pretty
Never.
good. That number, it'd be scary if it was 20 and, on revenue side, so.
I ran this by Todd the other day, but I literally woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about this old town hall.
Oh, God.
I know.
Did we get voted down again? Are we
Yeah.
getting voted down
Are you
again?
gonna go down that path right
Well,
now?
I just want to throw out a straw man for you. We got 400 and some odd $1,000 of free cash, right?
So,
460, somewhere in that range?
I'll tell you exactly.
But whatever, I get the picture. Go ahead.
684.
How much?
680?
684.
684.
684, okay. If we stuck about $150,000 to $200,000 of that aside, and I say aside, we didn't put it into any separate account or something, but we didn't spend it. We just kept it there, and it would roll from year to year into free cash. And we did that for 3 years. We'd accumulate $600,000 that we had earmarked to do something with Old Town Hall. Tear it down and build another building. Just, let's get it done. Now, what that building is,
Right, let the people,
we got,
the ideas.
let folks contribute, and we got 3 years to figure it out, but we have to do something with that building. And once we tear it down, we've got 2 years to replace it on the same footprint.
So going along with the earmarking, you really can't earmark because of the free cash.
Well, I say earmark,
calculation.
it's,
I understand.
it's an emotional earmark,
Right.
not a real
Right,
earmark.
I mean, I have,
But 3 years from now, free cash is certified, comes back, say,
You'd
$1
have
million.
the
Of that
theory would be
million,
that we'd have
$600,000.
$600,000 that we didn't plan on spending any other way that we could earmark for that building.
Correct. As a
And
potential.
then, we don't need an override, we don't need CPC, because they've turned us down anyway. We can fix it. If you figure about $200 a square foot plus demolition, we could easily do that for $500,000, two-story building.
how can we fix it? Again, okay, conceptually, not a problem. I mean, I just know what the voters have thought about us. Obviously, they voted down a lot of different things. We had, I'll bring up what would be a sore subject with people.
Well, they'd have to prove the spending of the money.
Well, no, I
but-
mean, I'll bring up the money that we dedicate to roads and we never use it, because times get tough. The board's gonna change potentially. How do we guarantee? I'm for it, because I think we could do something, but how do you?
You
how do you-
can't.
you
Yeah,
can't?
But look at it this way, what have you done? You've saved money. I mean,
Right.
you've got, I mean, if board 3 years from now says, we don't want to fix the old town hall, we got $600,000, let's put it in stabilization. Well, there's a great idea, or let's put it on roads. I mean,
No, I know
there's
what you're
nothing
saying.
bad about not spending money.
Sure.
Yeah, the situation's just gonna get worse, so this is, as it is, that's pushing it out 3 more years than we
Maybe
really
we could do it in
wanted
2.
to, so.
I think
I
the
mean-
estimate, though, is probably on the very low side.
I'm sorry?
I think your estimate to rehab that building is on the low side.
Well, I know what the tear down cost is. I've gotten that number.
Sure.
I'm
But
just.
You have to do, if there's 2 floors, have to be ADA compliant,
Right.
so an elevator has to go in.
Oh, well, that's a different issue. You're right. I did not build
Elevators
it in that
resource
mill.
room.
Maybe we do 1 floor. I don't know.
Not much of a building. I know what you're saying, though, because it does go up, right? And then you have to
Yeah, and I don't know whether it
Only
goes
do
to
the one
rec or
floor.
office
Yeah,
space
a
or
small
community
footprint, yeah.
space or, whatever its
Right.
purpose is, let a whole bunch of folks decide how it best serves the town.
Sure.
That's okay.
But if you only did the 1 floor, you're still subject.
Limited your space, I know.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah. Otherwise, they'd say go wide and deep, we can't, so you just, that way,
And obviously, 2 floors would serve a better purpose.
by the cost.
Elevator's about 80 grand, isn't that what it
Well,
was?
the police station was just over 100.
Okay, so
But-
80 to,
Yeah.
But it wouldn't
I
have
think
to-
you could be a little.
yeah, so it would be about 80 grand for an elevator.
A dumb way doesn't suffice. That's
Stick to your 3-year plan, maybe you'd be
Yeah.
all right.
I'm fine with it, I mean, again,
Still,
yeah.
still, if you can come up with a plan to, I know we tried once and failed, but you still could get CPC to rehab that building.
Yeah, I didn't do a very good job, and I think, obviously, I failed on that one miserably. Maybe Rich can help us out with the plan. Maybe Todd sounds pretty good. Go in there with hat in hand, I need an elevator. I didn't articulate very well. It was, it was kind of
It's
quick.
If we went to them maybe with a
Plan.
with a plan,
Right.
I think we were asking them for money for a plan, but if we went to them with a plan, maybe they'd, in a good plan.
No.
Well, it would have to be sponsored by the Historical Commission. I mean, it's one of the appropriate groups has to sponsor, or Rec could sponsor it. Actually, Rec or Historical could sponsor that. It is an historical building under our bylaw. It's over 75 years old.
But Rec too, as again, they could use more meeting space, work out,
Oh, we
yoga space.
we can use the space, that's a given,
Okay.
yeah. It's just, I know there were those at town meeting that think we could, with some hedge clippers, fix it all up and so on. That person's not been in that building. Fire chief and the building inspector have both said this needs to come down.
I've been there.
Yep.
Sorry, me.
And I'm concerned about that, because we got a lot of people parking there. There are kids. Somebody, you're not gonna be too hard to break into that building. It's pretty easy. And we know what's gone on down in Southwood in those abandoned buildings. So now that's obviously more wooded and secluded and all of that. I got it, but I'd hate to have somebody hurt in that building. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a straw man for you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, no, I like it. I have no problem. Like you said,
All over.
it's gonna, like I said, it's just like the bridge. It has to be fixed sooner, and prices are only gonna go up. So it's
General
not-
fund,
Got it.
the water fund's the next page, set up the same thing, and then next iteration, we'll have, a couple more years on there, so you can see more of a comparison. And again, nothing here is a huge outlier. User charges, I spread out, we only had budgeted really one revenue item, now trying to come into, because we do have several different revenue items, user charges, licenses, permits and fees, and then the other revenue that's there, so I reallocated the budget in total amongst those to give us a better understanding, and then, on a going forward basis, I think that'll work out a little bit better, especially when we do the budgeting process. Because right now, we do a lot of budgeting on the expense side, but not so much the revenue, for the water trend. So I'd like to see, we'd be putting that as well. And this one the same as well.
But
on the third page.
should I be concerned that it's, way in a budget on revenue? Is that how we bill, or we're not getting paid again by some people?
We have, there are some people that owe us some money. So we're working on it. Mr. Borelli for Needham Investment owes us, it's north of 10,000, might be 22,000. I don't know if you have that written.
That would get us close. We'd still be under budget, right, on revenue?
Yeah, and I don't know if
25.
yeah, 25. So, and I know, Stop and Shop they had gotten up to date. I'm not sure if they're behind now, but I think they were up to date.
That's on the wastewater.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what you were talking about.
I was talking about wastewater, yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about wastewater.
Oh, just because it's way off.
I thought you were talking about.
Correct.
I'm sorry, no, I mean, it's a small budget at 125, but you only have 20% 6 months of the year, right? So you
Right, and of that 125, 20,000 we're trying to earmark for reserves as well, so that would come down as well.
We're still behind.
Yeah.
We're still behind, yes.
I think it's
How about budgets? Got preliminaries on that?
No, I do not.
Oh, come on, you got some peoples.
I do have some people.
There we go.
The budgets, put the budget requests out earlier this month. We told them we meant to have them in by the end of the month. That way we can start to schedule out meetings with the advisory board, have meetings with myself and Jack. Information is starting to be put into the munis, as we did last year, so a good portion of it's gonna be input there. I've yet to hear anything from the schools as far as their numbers. And then obviously KP, haven't heard anything as far as what they're looking for.
I think we've got a meeting on February 13th.
February 13th is right. Yeah. Is going to be their first draft that they're going to meet with well, you've been part of that group, so that's the February 13th.
So that's where we are with the budgets. The last item is the,
I said echoing so much.
There is an echo in here.
Spooky.
budget. So what I did here is basically total budget for the project's $14 million. And then it was kind of allocated out budget-wise, which probably needs to have a little bit of an adjustment on some of the items, because we're starting to have some site work done at the fire place that we didn't have, fire
Excuse me,
station.
sorry.
So obviously we'll have a couple of line items, and the thought process is, some of these items are kind of being commingled, meaning they're going to one line item instead of, separately to the fire, separately to the police department. So I'm gonna try and also straighten that up a little bit. But, it's kind of broken out now between the fire station and police station majority, especially at the cost of construction, and the design and engineering fees.
You're the cause of both.
This report on the police fire
Mhm.
is terrific.
Okay.
It's the first time I've seen it on one page.
Well, it's on one page, but then I also have the other 12 pages of backup, which
Well,
actually
we've been
creates
seeing the other 12 pages of
summary.
backup. It's a lot more fun to look at one page.
Yes, especially for me, someone doesn't have.
Usually try and give you
I'm
some
gonna look at the 12 anyway.
I know, you
So
can look at the
this-
12 anyway, so I'll take the one, and tell me if there's a problem I
Like I
should be
said,
aware of.
there are a couple highlights on there, and that's just for me to go back and make
stole your
those
sheet.
adjustments, like I said, to
Oh, I thought maybe
the
that was
budget and so
raising
forth.
concerns, okay, I get you.
I have no concerns at this time. Again, it's just more realigning the budget itself. Because again, the budget was developed earlier on. And I got this after the fact. So I think we need to, either at another meeting, figure it out if we need to reallocate or keep it, and then see if the variances are there in total. But another good item is that part of this process required us to go out to the market and get the bond issued, reissued, and we did some refinancing for that bond. And with that refinancing, we were able to save about $127,000
That rate's going up a little bit.
by combining some of the other debt that we had.
What rate did we get?
Huh?
What rate did we get?
Off the top of my head, it's 2 and change.
A little bit higher,
Yeah,
yeah.
surprised.
It still
That was a
should be-
while ago. I mean, that was.
Should be 3.
I don't have it in front of me. I'll get you that information.
That was not that big. I'm assuming it's around 3.
I think it was lower, but
Was it, is
I'll
it gone
find
up
it.
higher than that now?
I'll find out. And the good part about going out to bond, we were attractive to about 11 different firms, because they all give the different bids on it, so it worked out well. And as part of that
Rating,
process, we
bond
also,
rating.
Yeah, no, stabilization.
part of that process, we also had to update our information with the S&P. We are AA+. There are a couple of areas that we can improve on, which I plan to do some more improvements on, capital budget items, forecasting, things of that sort, which is what you're gonna start to see on this. So hopefully that'll also improve our rating overall on a long-term
Now, when
basis.
the debt goes on for the school, at least the last time I looked at that number, with our reserves now at over 1.6 in stabilization, plus free cash,
1.78, yep.
1.7. Found somebody that remembers it as much as I do.
I was just gonna say.
This
This is
is-
good.
This is not
Let's get
good.
duel anytime you
This is-
want.
This
Yeah.
is gonna be a war. I can see this coming.
Who's got the bigger calculator?
1.738.
Oh, no, I believe you.
You guys are getting punchy, it's getting late, guys, okay. So what was your question?
My point, my point is, at least, I don't think you're gonna have an issue, I mean, unless there's something, in terms of the ratios, I think we're good with S&P.
Correct.
That's my point.
Yes.
I don't think we'll have any risks there.
No.
Yeah.
They did highlight some areas which are all addressable, and I'm in the process of doing some of those.
Were these in the
items.
accounting process?
Not in the process, but just having.
They want,
Capital
the-
budget,
the
you
for-
talk, yeah, better forecasting.
Right.
they want better forecasting.
Well, they want,
That's not a bad idea.
right.
Okay,
I think that's a no-brainer, you think that's common sense?
that's a
but-
no-brainer.
But, now I get your notes, they don't, that's,
Okay, you can have that back.
okay.
Is there anything else you guys would like to see, not see? Is the summary enough?
For me, it is,
Trend
I
will
mean, I
be-
don't know, I know Mr. Numbers here, he's looking at the back 12 pages anyways, Jeff probably is too, but I'm more of a high-level guy, so I'm fine.
I also plan to do a scenario, again, because we're gonna have to go out for the other bond, not necessarily next year, but maybe the year after, to finish up with the police, but also tie in some of the other older debt, as well, it's what that would look like, for savings as well.
Nice, love that. Thank you, Todd.
Anytime.
Have a good
This
night.
is great time.
Yeah,
Thank you very
Sorry
much.
for keeping you so long. We even kept Rich here. I didn't apologize to keep Rich here. Rich is Rich
Well,
on
Rich,
the,
Rich just wanted to give us an update on the Complete Streets program. That nothing going on now, but just something that will be coming in the future. So.
what's it called?
Complete Streets. So the state has a program which is called Complete Streets for municipalities to participate in. Basically what it does is there's different processes you go through, but for you do an evaluation on roads and sidewalks, and you put together a prioritization plan. And what it does allow you to do is that there's a pot of money, there's $400,000 that are available to do improvements related to roads and sidewalks. The idea of a complete street is you look at vehicle traffic, you look at pedestrians, you look at bicycles, and you try to create some parity between all those. And you look at safety as well as you do road design. And it's a policy, so what would happen is to participate would have to come back to the board to develop what we call a complete street policy. Is one of the things that gets you put together a policy, gets rated by Mass DOT, and then if that gets approved, then the next thing you do is you go through a prioritization plan process. They have technical assistance money that's available to the towns who participate in the program to put together the plan. There's public meetings that are participated in. You do some evaluation, and you look at different things. Things that for consideration are, we have the roundabouts in town now. That's obviously one technique to deal with traffic. And there's all different things that could be incorporated that the town could look at for different intersections in town.
Obviously, we just had that brought up tonight again, that Seekonk Main.
Right, so Seekonk is a great
Beacon
example to
and-
take a look at it and do some evaluations on what could be done there to improve safety.
And you said we get help for that too, or grant, or some.
Yeah, there's help to hire professional traffic engineers to put together the plan. And then once you have that plan, you go through a prioritization ranking, and then you can submit for funding. So we're in line. So if we get moving on it, funding would open up in later 2018
Okay.
to have funding available to it. And there's also, it does help if you do other projects too.
I was close.
As well, when you look at roadway projects. So
It seems like, what's ask the easy question, what's the downside, Rich? It involves time, a lot of commitment or money. It sounds like a good, why wouldn't, obviously, we heard tonight the community wants to get involved with safety and sidewalks and roads. I've had questions about bringing back the road safety and, going out for a sidewalk thing like we did 10 years ago.
yeah, I'm trying to think about downsides to it. I guess if you were completely not interested in providing, you didn't want to share the road, so to speak. You didn't want to make better accommodation for bicyclists, and you didn't want to make better accommodation for pedestrians, then you probably wouldn't be.
I know, I meant like maybe the town, because, how sometimes you get these monies, like, and just like we had Angie grant, like, or you have to, when you get I see them, they win grants, like, hire 10 firefighters, that pays for 2 years. And then on year 3, Todd has to come up with that money in his budget. So I always look at it from a fun.
Oh, I see what you're
Practical
saying.
stand,
Yeah.
to me it sounds.
So in this particular case, it's not, it's not to add staffing or anything like that. It's physical improvement. So you might be adding a sidewalk to extend to a school, through.
Or that could be maybe covered through grants, or again,
Correct,
trying to get at,
exactly.
like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
What kind of financial outlay? In order to grant, do we have to match it? Again, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. Say it was $400,000 to build a sidewalk down there, because we wanted something for the senior center, right? That's been a big thing, hot button for people. And just getting older, so he doesn't talk about to walk that well, so I want to make sure he's got something down there. Say it was $300,000 the cost to complete. Would you think a grant would cover it all, or does the town have to put in?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So there could be a portion. So
Okay.
the town may have to cover a portion of it. It could be, talking to Bob McGee, with Chapter 90, going through prioritization, like, he's looking at doing sidewalks, so you might pool some money together to do it, so you kind of spread your money out. So it's not.
We had a plan done in 2007 on sidewalks. Which, oh yeah, have you seen it?
I've seen the plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still
that
around,
should be
but-
helpful.
Yeah, so that.
Because that plan's still valid.
Absolutely. So that plan, that would be information that could already be fed into the consultants, as far as incorporating into that. So now that plan kind of elevates a little bit, becomes because you incorporate into this prioritization plan. So you're,
Yeah, sounds great. I
so
don't
it's
know,
not,
Jeff, you know, I don't know what.
Yeah, because this has been a huge impediment here as far as moving forward with sidewalks, because, you know, it's a significant expense, and, you know, the state has never ruled favorably, and to my knowledge, in terms of the use of CPC funds for sidewalks. They view it as transportation, not recreation. That's
Even
basically
safety and people
class
walk on them too, yeah.
But, you know, you could argue that point, you know, with aging population. I mean, people like to go walking, and, you know, and we have a number of roads that can't be walked safely, so it is an issue.
agreed, yeah. I mean, I think it, and some of the things, you know, you can explore with, you know, with traffic, it's like, so the intersection with Seekonk Street is, for one, you know, take a look at, see what could be available. So they have different techniques.
That's in our February meeting.
Yeah, Bob McGee's gonna come in our February meeting and.
Oh, is, okay.
Just to talk about I think it's the 4 or 5 big intersections in town, and he has he's received some information from some traffic light, you know, signal type people. So I think that would be kind of, there may be some alternatives there for short-term solutions, and then, you know, maybe some long-term solutions for complete streets.
Okay. So what do you need from us, Rich? Do you need a voter, or do we can't do it tonight, I mean, obviously.
We
it's
gotta
a-
start working on the policy.
It's just more of a,
policy,
it's,
okay,
you know,
yeah.
to make you aware of what we want to work on, and then at this time, I don't have anything for you.
Okay.
I would have to come back and return, obviously, one would be the policy.
Okay.
Like I said, as the road commissioners, you would adopt the policy. I'll have a planning board meeting tomorrow evening. I'll probably talk to them about it, you know.
Good day. That's a good idea.
Huh?
Lucky you.
Thank you. And, you know, so that, again, that's something that they may want to consider doing, in joint support
Yep,
of it.
that'd be nice.
So,
Okay.
so I'll just talk about it in general terms with them tomorrow night, but
I like it. I mean, I think, great, thank you.
if there's any downsides, I'll
Yeah, no, I don't.
fully
think-
make you aware
yeah,
of it.
I don't think
but,
so.
uh,
Anytime you
Sounds
can
good.
anytime you can leverage money, we need more
Feel
than.
free to accept any check you can get.
Great.
Thank you.
Just don't
Thanks
give
for
it to
staying.
Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for staying.
Thanks for hanging there. Sorry, guys. I don't know, Todd, are we done with Todd too? I feel bad, you've been
Pink
saying
boys
it.
are done.
That's right, matching pink. I didn't realize that. But instead of pep boys, you got pink boys over there, right? Manny, Mo, and
Well, that's
Jack.
what you
Thank
said
you,
in the
yeah,
memo.
thanks-
We're supposed to
thank
wear
you both
pink.
for
Oh,
hanging in
blue.
there.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, we got the blue guys. Here, look at that, though. I just
It
noticed
was
that.
fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, you looked it. When you're not up here. Okay.
Team receives.
Good night, Rich.
All right.
Good night, good night. Be careful.
All right, well, let's keep moving. Jack, on discussion
Tom.
items. MBTA second line.
So Richard and I met with,
Sorry, I thought Richard was here, but it's okay.
Excuse me.
we met with a couple folks, 3 folks from the MBTA, and seem to have lost it at this point, but we talked about they are interested in putting in a double track, so a second line, second physical track
It's like they have Walpole, yeah.
from Walpole, from where Walpole stops being a second line. So that's someplace in Walpole by their station. All the way to the east side of Rockwood Road. So not to our station, but to the east side of Rockwood Road. There is future plans, probably 2021 or 2022, where they want to talk about adding the second line all the way to Franklin. There was a second line already on this property, so they already have the land. The only physical work they'd have to do, you know, other than making sure the bed is adequate, there's a ledge. You can see it from Seekonk Street. There's some ledge work that they would want to push that ledge, take down some ledge, just to give them a little more clearance.
Is that their property though, anyways?
Yeah, it's their property. So they're gonna file with Conservation Commission probably in February. They don't need permission from us or anything like that. They're also, they're working with us to. I don't see any negatives to this. I mean, there's no major construction. Laying the track goes very quickly. I think they said.
Chance they'd be willing to discuss the moving the station, so like that doesn't block our
Yeah,
traffic?
we had that discussion.
Well, they're spending this money, I don't know where they're getting this money, since they're building into Foxborough, which no one wants, except for
Yeah.
certain people.
Not at this.
I sat on the train for an hour because I had signal problems, so if they can't fix their signals for us, I'd love to figure, I can't wait till Rob gets back at the Mass DOT, so I can have this conversation with Mr. Rob. I'm sure
Yeah, you should do that. I would recommend that. Keep calling Rob. So design is underway. Design completion is in December of 2018, and then construction is from January 2019 to July of 2020. And you know, a lot of their the time-consuming construction is they have to redo there's a picture here of the Walpole. The track goes over the road, right on the western side of the station, their station. They got
I went to that station this morning.
yeah, they got to do a lot of work there because those. They said they inspected that steel there, and they wouldn't build on it.
They probably can't now. It's almost like when you have to get ADA compliant. Now they're going. If they want to go to rebuild now, they probably have to bring it up to stand. You know, I'm sure they get away with leaving it like that if they didn't put a second track.
So the reason they want to do this, you know, the gain, the benefit for this in the short term is they call it resiliency. What that means to us is that if a train breaks down between here and Walpole, they will be able to now go around it. What some of the added benefits are, and these guys are construction guys. They're not schedule guys, but they know the business as well. They said, you know, some of the added benefits are that it'll give them more flexibility in scheduling, so that potentially there could be better reverse commutes. There could also be the potential for more direct trains, so more high-speed express trains, which would be, you know, it's been a long time since I've
Now
gone
I'm
to
riding
Boston.
again. I'm starting to feel that pain since I'm
But,
riding
oh
the
my
commuter
God.
rail, my new job. And
Yeah.
again, until they really fix the signal problems, which held up everything by Ruggles and Bridge, and first I got to Walpole this morning.
Lady had a bad weather night.
I know, got the
You'll be
bit of
there
rain.
until
it was
tomorrow.
rain. So the first thing I got when I got to the station at Walpole was there's a bridge strike. And there can be a delay. Someone, like the bridge guys must have struck for a couple minutes, got delayed, and coming out
Is
tonight
it
again, it was
bridge
famous.
struck?
That's a strike.
Strike?
Like someone, I don't know what that, I don't know.
Car got struck?
I don't
A
know.
car
it just said
struck the
strike,
bridge?
not struck. But anyway, so then coming out tonight was the famous signal problem. It's like the signal, they had 6 trains backed up and over an hour
Sounds
delay.
like Italy where the trains go on strike.
Yeah, I don't know what that-
Labor dispute.
I don't know what
Just
that
for
meant,
one
for the signal
stop.
guy, but anyways, so I agree, you know, if they had the budget to expand.
Yeah, so one thing we did bring up to them, well, we brought up to them 2 things. One is, our station is probably maybe not the worst station in
Just the way it crosses,
Massachusetts,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's the simplest. I mean, there's no frills to it. So they said when they add the second line,
Yeah.
they'll have to upgrade the station. They'll have to add platforms on both the north
Both
track and the
sides, yeah.
south track.
Okay.
So they will be redoing the whole station. They'll also be adding a walkover.
Yeah.
Because they'll have
Again, beyond the
They'll
tracks,
have
so
to,
just
yes.
where I want it, over by Food Mart there.
Yep, so we talked about that before. They may move the station, they'll look at that, they may move the station westbound for us. But, and I couldn't quite understand his rationale, but he said there is a constraint. They can't move it too far because of the bridge the Main Street Bridge that goes over the tracks. They can't have the station in the area of that bridge. For
Okay, it might be
some-
something with legal, structural reasons,
However, what the good news is that I said, really the issue that we have is that when the trains are coming eastbound and they stop at our station, the road is already blocked.
Yeah.
And so the whole time that the train is approaching, the train is sitting, and then the train is departing, the road is blocked.
Right,
So
that's true.
I said, is there anything you could do to make it so that when the train comes, the road doesn't get blocked until the train starts up again? And they said, yeah, we can look at, there are switches that will allow.
All that time, all I do is adjust the frequency of the thing.
Switch. There is a capital investment. It's not a slam dunk, but he says there's something they can look at. It won't be part of this project, but it's something they're gonna look at and try and, and it may be something that, certainly I'll work with Sean Dooley on that, to see if he can put some pressure on him to do that and.
I think Mr. Bugby should be our new liaison to MBTA.
Only because
He's in Boston anyway.
He's
Yeah.
the user of the
I
system.
know, I am now, I was in the car,
Yeah.
11, I didn't realize how good I had it for 11 years. Now I'm back on the commuting masses. Ugh,
No, I don't miss those days.
no.
Oh, you're doing it now with Wi-Fi. We didn't
Oh,
have-
yeah, no, it's
we
true.
didn't have
And
Wi-Fi in the
cell
old
phones
days.
too, yeah, no. Yeah, and you're still at a quarter from, I know.
Yeah,
It's like how long you did it.
I read a lot of books,
I do too.
old-fashioned books.
I do too. I read a book all the time. Okay, thanks. Is that it on the MBTA?
That's it on the MBTA,
Okay.
unless
great.
you have any questions.
You want to move on to do some action items? We gotta-
Love to. Please consider opening the warrant for town meeting approval and the attached town meeting schedule for the warrant. Kind of
Can I get a second on that?
I'll make the motion.
First,
I can't move
certainly-
it.
yeah.
Should we start with that?
Yeah, sorry, sorry.
I move to open the warrant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Just to give people some dates at home, right? So the warrant will be open tonight. Warrant articles are due in final form by 4 PM on February 26th. And we're gonna, Board of Selectmen closes the warrant, reviews articles on March 13th. Annual town meeting, May 8th or 9th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, so you said, so I have an interesting question. I need some, I guess I'm looking for your advice as to how to just deal with it. I had a resident approach me who wants to have it's probably a ballot question, but it may be a town, I don't know if it's a ballot question or a town meeting vote, but is looking to have, set term limits for all elected positions in town. Obviously, he realizes he needs to probably do it by petition. He probably can't, I'm not sure, should I tell him to go seek advice of his own counsel to pursue that? Should I tell him that, give us the idea and we'll work with town council to write up the concept, or should I, or you get some other, or option C, which I may not even have thought of.
Why is it? Because it has to be worded properly, or is this, are we concerned as a legal issue around letting people set term, voting for?
Well, no, I mean, it's something that I assume, I know there are term limits.
Yep.
That is an option. Is it something, and I personally can't see it's something that I would support. But I guess I'm asking, do you as the selectmen want me to use town resources to help somebody put together a petition article that, and this, in the past, we haven't,
I was
I
gonna
guess.
say, it seems to open up, because I don't know where I'd be able to draw the line properly or rightly, if you will, like what petition deserves help and which doesn't. I think they all, quote, deserve help, but again, it's asking a lot of the I look back as a town resource, which is their tax dollars, right? That's the only reason, and I don't like to be judge and jury on like, okay, this petition warrants getting help in phrasing. I know Jim's offered to help citizens, he's down to the copy and help some do, frame or get a petition, as best we can, but that's my feeling. I don't think it's right. I don't want to say right, but it's just hard. I just can't then, we'll just have this, I mean, I think it's Jeff, use what Jeff's word, it's quicksand. I think we'll get sunk a little bit, me personally.
I would think it would have to be a ballot vote,
It probably does have to be a ballot
would be my
vote.
guess.
Right?
That's the beauty of petitions, people can.
No, I think he's asking us if we want.
No, I know, but I
No.
mean, we've never used town resources that I know of. I mean, and you're right, I mean, I know individuals have helped on occasion, but we've never used town council's resources to help somebody write a petition. I mean,
Right.
if we were the sponsor of the petition, that's a different issue.
Right, and I get,
So maybe
so
we
that would be question one, I guess, would you want to sponsor it? And I think I probably can make that assumption that you don't, but maybe I shouldn't make that
Well, if it's
assumption.
a ballot question, can't we direct them to, like the Attorney General's office, the
Or-
State Attorney General's
Or
office?
even town clerk. But first, I think it has to doesn't have to get passed by town meeting anyway, so it has to be, right? Or can, I don't know if it's
I'm
right
not
to
sure
ballot.
of that.
I'm not even sure,
I mean, go right to
something,
ballot.
I mean, like getting the clerk's position from a elected to appointed, yeah, that was a town meeting vote and then a ballot question, so I assume it's actually probably something as.
And it overrides the same way. So I don't know though. I have no idea. I mean, there are some state positions that have term limits, governor being one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I would be opposed to at least looking into what the process is. I don't think that's a bad thing to help out on.
If it's a town meeting
Yeah,
ballot or just
I don't
ballot or.
think we should supply counsel to help someone frame it unless we want to sponsor it, which, is another discussion. But what's wrong with at least finding out
What needs to be done.
how do you go about it? That's a pretty reasonable question for a citizen to ask, I think. How does one go about bringing forward that question? Does it need to go, does a warrant article and then to vote, or does it just go to I can't imagine it's just town meeting. I gotta believe it's a vote.
Yeah, Oh, I'm
but I
sure.
don't know.
Yep. Okay.
That may not, you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to sponsor it, but I'm fine with that, yeah.
The next action item was, I think we'd like to just push it off because I didn't run it by the chief, and there's some suggestions here. So, but I did want to have you start thinking about the names. So there's a list of names.
So we'll move that off. I saw it too. I like some names. I think you're right. I don't know the rule. I mean, I know we have the authority to do that, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to have, Chuck usually provides some input just to make sure that there's not other.
Anyway.
Other names that would, over the dispatch, over the radio would sound similar or.
That's fine.
So
So we can bring it up. Thank you,
If
Jay. We'll
there,
bring that back
if there
up.
are names on that list that you want to rule out,
I
that
look
would be helpful, I guess. But-
Okay.
But we could start thinking
I
about
like
that.
that.
Yeah, it was kind of like a hybrid thing, like you could combine this with that or that with this and, you
Yeah.
know, that,
Yeah, they gave us a lot of options.
Yep. Okay, we'll put that off. Thank you.
And then we have a request from the town clerk to consider to purchase 4 image cast optical scan voting machines from LHS Associate Incorporated and vote to approve the discontinuance of the current 4 AccuVote machines the town is currently using. The purchase of these was already funded by town meeting, so that's not the question. It's just they actually need you to take.
There's
that.
2 votes. I assume it's like, I think, we'll do 2 motions and one to discontinue, let's discontinue first and then add the new ones, if I can get a motion for that.
So moved.
Second?
All is in favor of discontinuing the use of the AccuVote machines in town hall, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to now approve the new machines?
So moved.
Second?
All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just curious what
And that-
happens with the old machine.
You send them to Russia.
Send them to Florida, so they don't have the chat issues. Don't they go to Florida?
We send them to, what do you call those countries? Oh, never mind.
Friendly nations.
Friendly nations. And of course, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So I would just comment for the record that those votes are as outlined in the memo from the clerk. Please consider approving the rebid results for the salt bid for 2017 and 18, and I believe that it's also asking you to choose the winner as well as select the alternate, just in case the winner is not able to provide. I don't know, somebody stole my stuff. Nothing. I got it right here. So I would recommend that you approve Eastern Mineral CC Salt at $45.20 per ton, and an alternate would be Morton Salt CC Salt at $59.93 per ton, which would be used if
need
Eastern
be.
was unavailable.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bum. You have in your packet a purchase and sale for 66 Priscilla Avenue. This is the property that was, again, we went through the process at town meeting and have begun the process of having it move through the House for, to receive it's a home rule petition for local legislation to allow us to forego the 30B process.
We have to approve this and sign it?
Yes.
I move to approve the purchase and sale agreement for 66 Priscilla Avenue for the sum total of $50,000.
Do I have a second?
In a minute?
We're
Just
the
had that
sellers,
in my
so that's money coming in.
You want to write it, Jeff?
Spend away.
Don't mind? You gonna read the whole thing?
Yeah, that's somewhere in my paper.
Yeah, I got you.
This is the one we had the warrant article at the time.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Second?
Any questions, concerns? All is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sold.
Want us to sign this?
I do, and so there are two purchase and sale agreements, and there are 2 riders.
There it is.
Okay. So while we move it, okay. got that one, thanks,
Please
Jeff.
consider approving the assigning the Southeastern Regional Services Group
That was the first
Award.
one. Okay, do I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second on that?
Second?
All is in favor?
Aye.
And finally,
Sorry.
please consider signing the sample ballot for Norfolk annual town election.
So moved.
Second?
All is in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You have that?
I do
Yeah, I signed one already. Do you want to?
As did I think we all.
I don't know if I did, I don't know if I signed, but, and then we had the minutes. I didn't sign.
There's one that needs to be signed, I think by
Okay, and
everybody.
then we have minutes.
And then the ballot?
I signed the ballot.
Those were in your packets.
Yeah, I signed one.
That's what I brought over to you, Sue.
All right, we signed something.
Oh, you already signed that and
We, in triplicate, yeah.
Jeff returned it. That might be
Yeah,
that?
right there.
Okay.
Okay, and then how about the minute, whatever, the last thing, the last thing on our list, check minutes?
You have minutes for April 10th, 2017, November 14th, 2017, October 30th, 2017, and December 6th, 2017, all regular minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes
All right.
as stated.
Second?
Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How many of these, the ballots, the sample ballots,
I think-
have we signed enough of those? or-
There's a lot of pages to sign, Jeff, so just go through each one of those.
I think the
please.
sample ballots are already,
Yeah, there's all
Yeah.
signed.
Yeah,
You're
all
okay?
set there, okay. Any other, we've covered discussion items, action items, we've covered the minutes and the warrants. Anything else, Chairman? Any-
And Mr., our Mr. Finance Director informed me that the bond rate we got was 2.7132.
Excellent. Thanks, Todd.
Okay, so I'm gonna pass the minutes
Which is really good.
Yes, really good. Yeah, I think rates went up. How many okay, any other,
You don't need these back for anything, do you?
what are those?
Nope, not your copies, just the original.
Okay, well, I don't really want to hold on to that, so I'll give it back.
Here's another set for Jeff.
Any other business? How about a motion, if there's no other business, motion to adjourn? Christine's been over.
So moved.
Oh, we got this here, time for, sample ballot. Okay, a second for closing tonight's meeting? No? Right, oh,
Did he make the motion?
he so moved, yes.
Oh, he
That's
did?
why I'm looking at you for
Oh,
the second, sorry.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks, hanging with us on this rainy evening. We'll be back on, I believe, February 6th. Good evening.